entertainment, but also it's a huge risk for these riders. It's not just on the gravel sections either, it's on the really technical roads that we have. Obviously, in the UK, we're not known for our wonderfully smooth and European style asphalt. We get a lot of quite heavy and rutted roads around here. So yeah, it's always going to be difficult. And then we've got the road furniture to negotiate as well, and maybe the odd local who doesn't necessarily know that the racing's on. It's always going to be hard work for the police to control that as well. So it's always going to be dangerous doing these sort of races. But yeah, hopefully it's we don't have any more spills than the one we've already had.
No, absolutely. And so I just got the information up. The major talking point for 2026 is the debut of the Canalberg. So 8 years in the making for this section with the landowner. It's 1.4 kilometers. So it's not the longest stretch. The longest stretch is the Sommerberg, which is 2,200 meters, 2.2 kilometers. So this is 1.4 kilometers of private farm track that drops into the finale at 157.58 kilometers. So it provides a new tactical launch pad for late attacks, theoretically, in the race. So yes, we do have theoretically 12 farm or off-road sections, but one of them is the Barleyberg, is a historic section of this race at 50.02 kilometers in. It's very specific. It's now unclassified as it's been entirely repaved. So fancy that, a bit of a respite for the riders. We've got some pre-race interviews. I think if we can go to shortly, I think we've got Ed Morgan of My Pad Racing. So we'll just get you some feeds of what's happening on the ground. But yeah, so we've also got 6 King of the Bergs, 6 climbs, points and prizes. The overall winner of the King of the Mountains competition then today gets £100 and 3 bottles of Quermont beer, which sounds very nice. I should also point out are you familiar with the Grain Store Beer Award, Tim?
Yeah, it's one that I think I'd probably, if I was able to compete with the riders in this race, would be going full force onto trying to win this sprint.
So yeah, it's located at the sprint line in Austin on the second passage of the village at approximately 79 kilometers. It's sponsored by the Grain Store Brewery, who will give the first rider across the line at that point their entire body weight in beer, I believe, which is quite exciting. I mean, I don't know if you're a cider fan and you're not a beer fan. I don't really know how that works for you, but your entire body weight of beer, how long is that going to last you? A little while. Maybe something to...
Well, it depends, doesn't it?
I
It depends
suppose.
because obviously these pro cyclists are not very heavy these days, are they?
I suppose that's true. Though I did watch an interesting recent video about whether or not you'd have 5 watts or lose a kilo. And having 5 extra watts apparently much better than losing a kilo. But we've also got a couple of sprint competitions. We've got the Hotspot Sprints competition and the King of the Windmills competition. So they're 2 different sprint competitions. So one passes the windmill, which I'm going to butcher the name of, Wimondham. Is that correct, Tim? Wimondham?
I'm not too sure either, to be honest.
I think it is.
But it's roughly about that, isn't it?
Yes. So we have 3 passes with consecutive prizes. I think the prize pot in total of today's race is well over £5,000, which is quite exciting. But there's also, so that's the windmill sprints, 3 separate sprints past the windmill, and then we also have the Hotspots Sprints competition, which is the official sprints competition sponsored by Oakham Wines and Manor Farm Feeds. So 3 different sprints at 48 kilometers, 122 kilometers, and 133 kilometers. So this being a UCI 1.2 race, my understanding is it has to have a minimum distance requirement. Is that the case, Tim?
Oh, you've got me there. Yes, I think that is one of the things that the UCI really like to implement on these sort of races. They've got all sorts of fun and interesting rules that most of the time you have to abide by, and some rules that they bring in and then just don't use at all. But I think this one is one that, yes, you do have to have it over a certain distance.
Fair enough.
What
And
that
obviously,
distance is, I can't say.
that's quite, I mean, neither can I. Perhaps if anybody's watching on YouTube and you have more information, absolutely let us know. There is a comment section and we'll be trying to reach out to comments as much as possible. I think we're going to go to footage of the crash, which happened earlier on today. So the race was neutralized for some time, obviously, to make sure that the riders are safe. A few of the riders who came down did require medical attention. So obviously, rider safety, most important thing on the day. So the race was neutralized. Nobody's been ahead at that point. So it is all still together, but just as we see some of the motor riders there, just making sure that comes in there. Steve Thomas there, making sure everybody's nice and safe. We've also got an interview with Owen on the street, so we're going to go to Owen. I think in just a second.
Standing around in the middle of Rutland right now. What's going on?
Yeah, there's been a big crash, so they've had to neutralise the race and stop us while they clear the road of the riders, because obviously we're going to go. It's a circuit. We're going back around that area, and yeah, you can't be sending a race into a load of bodies. So yeah, just hanging around at the minute, and hopefully everyone who came down is okay, and that they can get the race going again sometime. But yeah, obviously bike racing is a luxury and people's health is much more important. So
Nicely said. And in terms of the race itself, how were you feeling up until this point?
Yeah, pretty fine. I think we've only done 12K, so yeah, if you're feeling bad already, I think you're in for a rough day out. So yeah, I think everyone's kept their powder relatively dry. I wouldn't say I've done enough to know how I'm feeling. Warmed up, but yeah, too early to say.
And generally, what was the game plan coming into this? Does this change anything? You know, standing around for a while, does it change the game plan?
I don't think so. I mean, this first hour of the race is always relatively easy. I mean, not normally as easy as standing around, but yeah, we didn't expect the race to break up here. So yeah, once we get underway, it should just be kind of pressing resume on our race. So yeah, I don't think it changes too much.
Yeah, and hoping to go better than before. As I said, you podiumed here before.
I don't know. I've had a bit of a rough April, getting my excuses in early. I had a big crash and then some food poisoning for good measure. So yeah, I wouldn't say I'm in as good shape as I was then, but you never know. You have to be in it to win it. And certainly, even if I can't pull out a result today, I'd like to be able to contribute to a team result. So yeah, we'll have to see.
Well, best of luck, man. We'll let you get back in the game, as it were.
Yeah, I don't think you're going anywhere fast, but yeah, nice to have a chat.
Yeah, shame to have a crash so early on, Tim. How do you think that's going to affect the riders going into the rest of the race?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. Well, like you said, they've only done 10 or 12 kilometers, so it's really difficult to really tell where on earth their legs are. If they've got good legs, bad legs, you can see them. They'll have just warmed up, they'll have been on the rollers before the start, and they'll have got everything ready. Their nutrition would be all balanced and stuff, and then they have to stop and sit on a wall for a little bit. It's completely understandable, and of course, the riders' safety, who people have gone down, the ambulances need to get there. They need medical attention, so you have to stop the race on a circuit like this because, of course, we go back on ourselves all the time. But yeah, so it's a really tricky one for the riders. It must be really difficult for them all having to sit on the side. There's a chance of getting a bit cold, feeling a bit stiff after getting going again. So yeah, hopefully all the riders are okay after this. I mean, we've not heard anything since, and everyone's been rolling through. And you can see they got going again. You can see that new Valkenburg kit there, the bright orange and green. Got to say, I quite like it.
Yeah, and the rider Owen was talking to from Atom 6 Cycler Deluxe Autostru, one of our continental teams in today. And that was, I actually off the hair, I quite enjoyed that as well. It's very bright red and blue. They bring 6 riders today: Matthew King, George Ratcliffe, James McKay, Enrico J, Magnus Lawrence Nielsen, and Christopher Gulhab. So that's one of our continental teams here today. Obviously, with 3 continental teams, 25 British teams, 10 international teams. Are the continental teams likely to be trying to keep the race under control for their riders?
You would think so. Like this year compared to last year, we know the sort of form guide of this sort of race because Mattis Avance, of course, runner-up last year. His team did a lot of controlling last year as well. We quickly realised it would be very difficult to control, but they are, by the looks of things, from the amount of pictures we've seen, they are trying to control things early on as well. They're going to really probably be focused, like all the British teams are probably going to be looking towards them and say like, well, you're the UCI ranked team, you're the ones that's got to do the work on the front. So yeah, I feel that they're going to be the ones that are going to be forced to do most of the work, and yeah, it's up to them really.
Without doubt. I mean, I suppose if you're one of the British teams or one of the slightly smaller teams, we have a few different regional teams as well. The impetus is going to be far less on you to control the pace. That being said, if you don't have the support of a big, powerful team, maybe you only, some of these teams have 6 riders, a few of them only have 4 riders or fewer. You're going to have to rely a lot more on your position and being able to judge in the race what team is likely to do what and where those attacks are going to go. The Sommerberg is like the big part of this race that normally splits it all apart. I think we go over it three or so times. But it's at its longest section is 2.2 kilometers of brutal farm track roads. So even if you do have, I suppose, the benefit of a larger team, if you go into those sections and you're not in a good position in the bunch, that's obviously not ideal because it strings out, and all of a sudden you could be a kilometer from the front of the race, and you're not necessarily a weaker rider, you're just in a really poor position. If you are one of those smaller teams, if you get at the front, you're going to put yourself at a massive advantage. So how important would you say that sort of positioning and that kind of tactical awareness is today, as opposed to just literally raw power?
Positioning is key, and teamwork is really important in this sort of race. To just sort of compare races that some people may know if they've not come across this race before, it's a good example to look at something like Paris-Roubaix or Rutland-Melton, both taking place in northern France. Rutland-Melton is probably the best comparison as it's similar sort of roads. And positioning in that is basically you can be on the best legs in the world. You could be, I was going to say Tadej Pogacar, but not Tadej Pogacar because he can do anything. But someone similar to top level riders, and you could be really good legs, really good positioning, and then something will just jostle you out as the road narrows into a farm track or something like that, and you'll get pushed right back. And then you're fighting for the rest of the day. You've missed the split. If you've not got any teammates around you, that's basically day done for you, and you're fighting for minor places. So yeah, it's really important to obviously have good form and good legs. But even if you don't, if your positioning is spot on, you'll probably still get a pretty decent result, even if you've not got the best legs on the day. But obviously, yeah, you've got to have the technical skills, the positioning, the tactics, and the legs all to go together on a perfect day for you to potentially go in to try and win this.
No, absolutely. And to be fair, we should say that Tadej Pogacar can do pretty much everything. There's one thing he can't do, sadly, which is win the 2026 Paris-Roubaix. But then again, neither could either of us. But yeah. So I'll take you through a couple of some of the primary contenders that we might see today. So second last year, just pipped in the sprint, Mathis Avance for Azerion Villa Valkenburg. He was a 2025 runner-up, highest place returning rider. He enters in pretty peak form following a UCI victory at the Ster van Zwolle in March. We've also got Dylan Hicks, as you said earlier. He was third on the podium last year. He rides for British Cycling Southeast Region, Sigma Sports, I believe. So he's a local specialist who won the Junior CiCLE Classic in 2022 and finished third last year in the senior race. We've also got Matt Bostock, who is a absolute demon in a sprint, but also the reigning Rapha Super League champion. So this being the first event of the Rapha Super League for 2025, which we'll touch on in a moment. But he arrives with sharp track form after taking bronze in the Omnium at the Hong Kong UCI Track World Cup last weekend, which is pretty interesting. Also, Lucas Jowett from MyPad Racing, the current national road series leader, after his victory at the East Cleveland Classic. Only a few days ago. So we have some incredibly powerful riders. Talk us through Mathis Avance first. So he was second last year. He's got a big team backing. What are we sort of likely to see? How are we likely to see his race pan out? Is the team likely going to be wanting to race for him? There's quite a stacked team, 5 other riders, 6 in total.
Yeah, and these riders are all very capable of winning themselves as well. It's a real good mix of up and coming potential, really. Of course, Mathis Avance is 22 himself. And yeah, he's been very consistent so far. He's been riding really well, mostly going for the sprints so far. He's just off the back of the Tour de Loire at Cher, funnily enough, in France, where he came in the top 10 of the points classification there. He did some good results. You feel like they are going to be focusing on him, but they do have the likes of Steph Koenig and Luc Verberg, who are pretty solid riders as well. Otto van Zanden. I only know of Otto van Zanden because of the game Pro Cycling Manager, where he becomes a rather decent rider. So I imagine he's going to be one to watch here because they rarely get it wrong on that game. And so, yeah, they've got a pretty stacked up and coming lineup. It'll be interesting to see who's doing what, but I imagine Avance will be their main man.
Fair enough. Fair. And one of the other riders that actually, I was going to ask: are you a decent pro cycling manager? How do you come across?
Yeah, I think I spend too much time on that game, and I'm a bit too good at it. So yeah, I've won pretty much everything on that game. It's a bit silly, really.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we've got a couple of interviews from just the start of the race. I think if we can go to Tom Armstrong. So Tom Armstrong of Wheelbase Captac Castelli. He is the defending national crit champion in the bright sort of the lime green of Wheelbase Captac Castelli. He was also third in the Rapha Super League last year. So that's Tom Armstrong. I think if we can go to him in a moment, that'd be quite interesting because I think he's had a couple of really strong years. I think last year he won the Cambridge Criterium in the sprint finish as well. Super strong rider, Thomas Armstrong. And he's part of quite a big team. Let's see how many riders Wheelbase Captac Castelli have got with them today. So Wheelbase Captac Castelli, I've got a little database here. So they got Tom Martin, also incredibly strong sprinter, Robert Smart, Tom Armstrong, Aaron King, Dexter Leeming-Sykes, and Mitchell McLaughlin. Of those riders, do you think they'll be wanting to work for Tom Armstrong, or do you think that they might have other plans afoot?
I think they'll keep their options open, but I think the two Toms, Armstrong and Martin, will be probably their two main focuses. Of course, Armstrong, he held on in a sprint from the breakaway as the peloton caught up at the Cambridge Crits last year, but he had enough to hold them off. Whereas Tom Martin, we've seen in the past, especially in the circuit races, that he can win from a strong bunch sprint as well. So depending on the situation, of course, Tom Martin, really strong, powerful rider as well. So he'd be perfect for this sort of race. Armstrong, we'll see how he goes. I think he's probably in good form and he'll be wanting to do well this season as well. He had an amazing season last year. I think he was the national circuit champion, national series circuit champion last season, I believe. So he's obviously one to watch. It's always riders like that you're going to keep an eye on. And if he can get away in a move, then he's clearly got the kick to get the win.
Well, time will tell. We are going to throw to Tom Armstrong. So this is Thomas Armstrong, who will base Captac Castelli.
This is a very fetching nose strip there. How's it going?
I can breathe, so that's a good thing. No, it's good, yeah. What do you want to know?
How are the legs?
Yeah, they're all right. They're attached to my body, so we'll see.
I mean,
No. On a serious note, no. I think it's a good day for us. Last year we had a bit of bad luck. We were a bit unlucky. But we've got some strong options, and it's just one of those. It's going to be a bit of chaos, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of those races where you can't really predict how it's going to go.
No.
But you could try to shape it. So are you folks going to try and shape it, or you've got a strong sprint.
Yeah.
Tom's got good legs right now as well.
Yeah. I think it's one of those. Exactly how you said it. We've got the big lads to go long, and then I'll just sit and pretend like I'm suffering. Now I'll probably be suffering, and then try and pop out at the end. But yeah, I think it's hard to say that we'll try and shape the race because they're such a hard race to dictate what goes on in. I imagine that guys like Park Hotel will try and control it again this year. But as we saw last year, by 60k in, we were in a break with two of them and they were like, we can't control this. This is just going to be what it's going to be. And that's British racing, isn't it? It's just chaotic and roll the dice and see where you end up.
Yeah. And in terms of ending up for yourself,
yeah.
We saw Cambridge Crit last year. You got a strong sprint on you.
Yeah.
Do you want this to come to a sprint? Do you want a small breakaway? Would you prefer it to be solo? How do you want the race to pan out?
So there's probably 2 or 3 people that I'd be worried about if it came to a sprint, having them there. But I do think that this race can be grippy enough that it'll blunt their sprint. And if it comes down to a fatigued sprint, then I back myself in that situation. And I think it is that kind of race. You know, I don't think it's ever going to come down to a bunch finish on a day like today, just because of the nature of this race and the fact that teams are so small. You can't control it to be that.
Yeah,
it's too hard.
And you mentioned 2 or 3 other people. So come on, who are we talking about?
I think we all know. Bostock's the big one, isn't he? He does scare me. Nah, he doesn't. Well, maybe he does a bit, but nah, yeah, you know, he's definitely a faster sprinter than me. I'd 100% admit that. You've got, I think Tidball. I've seen him hiding around here somewhere in some regional team kit. So you know, if he's there, he's obviously one to watch out for. The Dutch lad from last year, he's also quite punchy in the finish. You know, and then beyond that, I'm sure there's other people out there that I've not mentioned, but I think for me, if I know that they're still there, they'll be the people that I'd be looking at. And we'd definitely be looking to try and make a bit more of a selection out of a group. I think there's a little kicker. It's a bit longer now in that finishing loop. So there was a kicker with about 10k to go last year where I think they tried to make a bit of a selection. I think that's too far out this year, to be honest. The roads are quite open from there onto the finish. So I think if you're going solo, you've got to be very strong. I'm not going solo. So I think, you know, I think it potentially could move after that, but there's a long way to the finish. It could come back together for about 5 or 6 to the finish, maybe 10, which would be a good scenario, but hopefully minus a few other people in there. But
minus the 2 or 3 you've mentioned.
Minus the 2 or 3 I've mentioned. But nah, even if it is, you know what I mean, you've just got to back yourself, haven't you, and commit. Yeah. So we'll see what happens.
Best of luck, man. Hopefully we'll see some Flora at the finish.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Hopefully.
And that's
So that's Tom Armstrong there for Roubaix Captec Castelli. His teammate Tom Martin actually 7th last year. We've got live pictures now. This is Sector 9, the Mannerberg. So it's actually also Sector 8, Sector 6 and Sector 4. Sectors are numbered with the highest numbers closer to the start and the lowest numbers closest to the finish. But yeah, it's a 4-star section, as you can see. Those are not the kind of typical road surfaces you'd expect on a lovely, like maybe a Sunday club run, are they, Tim? Do you fancy riding that kind of a track? Here we go.
Well, yeah, and just as I thought, it's Valkenburg on the front, controlling things. We have heard, unsurprisingly on these really rough terrain, that we just had a really, really nasty crash on this sector. Quite a few riders coming down, one rider in particular really coming down quite hard, actually. But according to reports on the sector, all riders are back up and okay, which is a relief. But that's through the Mannerberg. And yeah, the race looks really split up, really strung out as well. Still got quite a big peloton together though.
Yeah, but you can see just the see a few of the Cycling Sheffield riders as well, and foreign race team there in the red and the white. It's a hugely difficult route. I mean, if you find yourself caught back there, you can see just how hard the riders are trying. It's almost, you know, when you're at the front, you can, as in one of the PB Performance cycling riders there as well, just coming onto the back of the peloton, maybe had a flat or come down, something to distance him just slightly, as you see a few of the other riders just slightly off the back, in amongst the team cars. Yeah, I mean, the speed that the riders are going and the pace and the effort that they're clearly putting in at the back of the peloton, even, you know, if they haven't been dropped off the back of the peloton, you know, they're still in contention there. But the effort they're putting in is so monumental, considering the amount of effort that you see the riders on the front make. If you're on the front and you're going through these roads, you can pick your own line. You can see what's coming up ahead. If you're in the bunch, you know, maybe the road is obscured by 30, 40 riders in front of you. You can't really pick your line. And on roads like this, it's going to be absolutely brutal if you can't place your front wheel exactly where you want to. Maybe, you know, you hit a rut, or you hit like Rutland, you hit just a bump or a rock or something uneven in the road, it's going to make your race so incredibly difficult. So if you almost have that advantage being at the front, where you're at the head of the race. You know exactly what's going on. You can kind of control it. You're dictating it a little bit more. Whereas if you're in the back, as opposed to another kind of race, you can't really sit in, especially for those sectors. And so it's essentially a more difficult race the further back you are.
Yeah, it's really tricky. And I will say, of course, we are doing a watch along here. We can only show certain amounts of live coverage in this race today. The nature of the race, we would need so many more cameras and motors and things like that to do the race justice. So we thought we'd show as much as we possibly can today. And so we will be dipping in and out of the live racing and trying to get as much information to you as possible. But yeah, as we just saw, the gravel here so ridiculously rough. Like that looked very unpleasant. I wouldn't go near that on a road bike. A mountain bike could be fine. I think that would be a perfectly reasonable bike to ride on these roads on. But yeah, it looks really, really brutal out there. And yeah, unsurprisingly that the continental teams are up at the front controlling things.
Yeah, and like you say, the difference in the kind of bike that you're riding is going to make a huge difference as well. We just saw the very fast the women's and the men's race ever, and largely down, it seemed, there was a tailwind, I believe, on the day, but the bikes people are riding, 30mm tires or wider, maybe slightly narrower, but that kind of a choice is making the races a lot faster. Obviously, when you're going faster, these sections can become even more brutal because the impact that you put on the bike becomes, accentuated with that higher pace. I think we're going to go to another interview as well, just in a moment. The third wheel coming out of that section there. So the section we just saw was the Mannerberg. So there's going to be 4 passes of the Mannerberg, 4-star rating. So each of these sections have a rating out of 5 stars. But yeah, so we'll just see if we can go to that interview.
Connor, how's it going? How many times have you raced CiCLE before? Have you raced it before?
Second time.
How you find it last time, and how are you going to approach it differently this year?
Well, last time I had a mechanical 50K in. I got back, but kind of cooked after that. So hopefully not a mechanical this year.
That's not something you can control, though.
No.
So how do you approach it mentally?
I mean, you kind of have to accept that mechanicals will happen. So if they happen, then deal with it. But kind of hope you don't. We've done everything with our setups to try and minimize the possibility, but it still could happen.
And do you have anything different with your bike this year, or for this race in particular?
Yeah, running wider tires than we did last year, lower pressure, but then inserts as well to hopefully negate the risk of like bumping it on a pitch flat. So we'll see if it works.
And how are the legs feeling? What are you expecting from yourself for this race and generally the peloton?
Well, it was chaotic last year. I think it'll be chaotic this year. Not really sure if there's that many teams that can control it. Yeah, I mean, my legs are all right. They're okay at East Cleveland, but I got sick afterwards, so hopefully haven't really raced much since then. It's been 2 weeks, so hopefully they're still good, but we'll see.
And, with a race like this, it's crazy from the start. Everyone's always vying for position, and you have those sections in between the kind of gravel sectors. Is there anything you would say for people who haven't ridden this? How can you paint a picture of exactly what it's like to be in the peloton?
I mean, for the most part, it gets a bit rowdy before the gravel sectors because people want to position right. But, I mean, as long as you're in a good position and not at the back going into these gravel sectors, then, I mean, yeah, it's not crazy. It's no different than any other race, like fighting for position for a climb or fighting for position for a tight corner. So, yeah.
Should be good then. And the team this year is a new team. It's kind of got the sense of feeling from the previous year as well, from like Raptor and continuation of that. What's the goal for the team this year in this race?
I mean, I think we want to win. The team's capable of winning. So, yeah, we've got some really strong riders that are on pretty good form right now. So, yeah, hopefully we can ride well as a team together as well as you can on these roads. And, yeah, try and get a result out of it.
And from your team in particular, who are we looking at? Are we looking at you? Are we looking at? It feels like a cop-out to say yourself, so don't worry. Who else are we looking at in the team?
We've got Rowan, Alex, Will, Like, I mean, they're all capable. I mean, everyone's capable of winning. Like Ali, Harrison. Oscar's not here. Yeah, I mean, everyone's strong enough to win. It's just not everyone can win, so one person has to win.
And hopefully that's going to be someone from your team then. And not thinking about your team for a second, who else are we looking at in the race?
I mean, what's different about this race versus the Nat A's is they're actually overseas teams. Like, there's a couple Belgian, Dutch teams. So, I mean, I know a couple of them. I mean, there's a Conti team here, which is pretty strong. So, I mean, they did well last year. I think they were second. The Park Hotel team. I know Adam Six is here. They have a few Brits. So yeah, it'll be harder competition than most Nat A's, but also bigger field. So yeah, I mean, we'll see.
We'll see how it goes. Connor, thank you so much. We'll catch up at the end.
Cool, thank you.
So yeah, that Connor White of Jack Crew Hansling Racing. Interestingly, I believe the current reigning national Bermuda road race champion, which is very exciting. Got a couple of really strong riders with him. Also, William Truelove, who was third in the Road and Crit Series last year, second overall in the Rapha Super League, and also Rowan Baker, who I remember from the very first race I ever commentated, the East Cleveland Classic, the inaugural East Cleveland Classic, when he was riding for St. Piran, and just blasted away on that final climb. So in great company in that team. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on today. What do you think? Jack Crew Hansling Racing new team, how do you see them approaching today's race?
Yeah, well, like you say, they've got a strong lineup. I think that Rowan Baker and Will Truelove will be their main focuses. They've gone through another little change since, of course, being Raptor Racing last year. They were really good last year, but they started this season really well. They've got a few wins under the belt. But yeah, it sounds like they're pretty confident coming into this. They look like they had quite a few riders up towards the front as well when we last saw the peloton go through. But I think Rowan Baker would be a really good shout for today. But yeah, Truelove, obviously, we know how strong he is from seeing all the national series over the last couple of years. So I think they've got some options, like a bit like Wheelbase. They've got probably two options, but who knows? They may surprise us with one or two others as well.
Yeah, Truelove, we always see at the front of both the circuit races and the road circuit. The road races as well, road circuit, road races. Yeah, so huge diversity in the quality of their team as well, which is something that we see with all the teams, which makes it obviously a very exciting race. Just going back to the technical requirements of a bike for this, everything has completely changed since I raced. I don't know about you. I used to ride like 23 mil tires at 170 psi. Radisson Tricomps, they were the coolest tires in the world. But everything's completely different now. So what are the riders likely to be riding out today? Obviously, we've got discs is the standard. But specifically tire choices, what are you thinking is going to be going on here?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? It's really wondering what to go for. There's so many different technological advances in cycling now. Just for a small example, like Pogacar used 35 mil tires on his bike at Roubaix. We saw how that caused problems when he did eventually have a puncture. And then there's lots of teams that, for this sort of race, might actually go for inner tubes instead of tubeless. Little Trek did a sort of double thing at Roubaix. Whether these teams have the sort of technology for that, as they called puncture-proof technology. Of course, it wasn't. But if any of the teams here are going to be trying to use that sort of thing, PSI levels, it's really tricky to call. Most these days, you pretty much, if you watch a slow motion, it looks like they've all got flat tires because they've got such low PSI. Over gravel, generally a bit smoother than cobbles on the flat, so it may be a little bit higher, but definitely a bit lower than we would normally see, I imagine. So it's a difficult one to call, really, of what options. It's also personal preference, bike manufacturer, what sort of tires you have on. Some of these teams will be all riding different makes of bikes and different brands of tires as well, because they may not have a bike sponsor, which makes it even harder for mechanics and things like that, and choosing what to use. So yeah, it's a bit of a headache for any rider or any team in this sort of race to decide what they're actually going to go for.
Absolutely. With the point on tire pressure, I remember from I saw the British National Gravel Championships last year, and I talked to a few of the riders there, and the obsession between 2, 3, 4, 5 psi is huge. And I, if I go out on a ride, I just, I pump up to maybe, I don't know, 90 psi or something, 95. I'm like, 90, 95, whatever. But yeah, the absolute obsession of, okay, if I don't have it at this level, and then that plays into your psychological mind as well. Maybe you're out there and you're thinking, if only I'd put another 5 psi in the tires, or if maybe I should stop and let a little bit out. I mean, obviously that's very unlikely to happen, but all those kind of slight mental digs at yourself I think they can all add up. So I wonder if we are entering an area of time where we have access to so much data that if you obsess about it so much, it can actually be a negative sort of mental faculty issue because you're worried about it. Any thoughts on that?
I mean, yeah, it's obviously if you go so deep into these numbers and all about the absolute smallest little gain that you can get, you'll drive yourself insane, I imagine. It's not something like, yeah, I do exactly the same. I don't even look at the PSI count on the pump. I just sort of feel if the tire's firm or not. And if it is, then yeah, that'll do. And it should be fine.
I
But
guess
then again, we're not riding over those cobbles and gravel, are we?
exactly. Yeah, I suppose we say this from a point of view of not being a professional cyclist. So yeah, for what it's worth, it might be absolutely entirely valid to be as obsessed about those 5, 4, 3 psi as possible. We can see it on the screen. We've got a few little trackers. There's a really great map as well available on the CiCLE Classic website as well, which goes through, because there is, I think, 6 different loops that the track takes today, and there is a final loop. I'll just get some information about this final loop. So the Oakham finale has been formalized this year after crossing the line in Oakham Market. So it's this big open market with a lovely finishing line, loads of space for spectators. Looks wonderful. So you cross that the first time at 173 kilometers into the race. And the peloton takes in a brand new 12-kilometer finishing circuit that passes Burley on the Hill and Barnsdale before arriving back at the finish proper. So the second time they come back through that line, that will be the finish. I believe there's also I think I read in the race program, I don't have the information here, but I think there's a very strict cutoff. It might be 10 minutes. So if you're 10 minutes back on the leading group, when you go through that start finish line the first of the 2 times, then you will be pulled out by the commissaires, which makes the race really exciting. So we have that very specific final 12-kilometer circuit, and we spoke to Tom Armstrong earlier. He said those final sections, it's quite wide. There's a lot of space for racing, and so if a group gets to there, quite possible we might have some kind of a bunch sprint. So yeah, very excited to look at that. We also previously talked about, we've got 12 different sections of off-road. They're numbered up to 12, but theoretically we actually only have 11 because the 11th sector got repaved, is no longer an off-road section. But they each have a star rating. So I wondered if you could tell us just a little bit about how those star ratings work and what they mean in practice.
Yeah. Surprisingly, the higher the star rating, the harder the sector is. We have mostly 4-star sectors, which just goes to show how brutal this race is, really. But length comes into factor, and then when you see the shorter ones that we've got, the Mannerberg, for example, is 700 meters long, but it's a 4-star sector compared to a 1.2 kilometer New Boldsberg, which is a 2-star sector. And so that's obviously a much smoother, nicer gravel. And we've got a few 5 stars. We've got the Sommerberg, and then the Sommerberg reverse of both 5-star sectors. And then we've also got the Stapelberg, which is our penultimate sector of the day, which is a 5-star. It's difficult to really judge. I'm sure you've got more information because I didn't read that little bit of how they categorized, but I imagine it's mainly around the difficulty bits.
No, absolutely. I believe there's also there's official star ratings, and there are also media guided star ratings as well. Don't quote me on that. That may be wrong. However, I can take you through all of the sections, section by section, if you want. I probably won't because we'll be here all day. But yeah, the Mannerberg, the first 2 passes are 700 meters. The third pass is 1,800 meters, which is in reverse. So you go in a different direction, which is so cool about this course is the way it rides is you end up going back over certain parts you've already ridden, but in a different direction. So you get to experience the pain and the brutality in a multitude of different ways. And then the final time through the Mannerberg, pass 3 in the same direction, is again 2,200 meters, all 4-star passages. The final passage through Ostend is 2,200 meters long, making it the longest Mannerberg pass of the day. Instead of the shorter turns used earlier, it utilizes the full length of green lane entering the village. There we go. The manual notes the entry is particularly narrow with a rough surface that is hazardous at late race speed. So that's going to be the kind of thing that's factoring in for the classification and how you decide, is it a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-star? The speed that the riders approach it, and the technicality of the intro. If there's a brilliant picture, it's kind of like the quintessential CiCLE Classic picture. I'm not sure which section it's on. Maybe somebody can enlighten me. But it's a left-hand turn off, beautiful tarmac onto just brutal pavé, I suppose. And yeah, so there are going to be a multitude of different factors determining what makes a section difficult, what makes it a higher categorization, essentially. But it's not just the off-road sections. We've also got King of the Mountains, which I'll see if I can get some information here. Yeah, so we got 6 climbs: Cold Overton Berg at 62 kilometers, Burraberg at 73 kilometers, Melton Lane at 90 kilometers, Cold Overton Berg at 105 kilometers, Burraberg again for a second time at 116 kilometers, and Cuckooberg at 144 kilometers. So we got a whole load of climbs as well. There are points. So the way that this works, King of the Mountains, is there are points for the first 3 riders, 5 points for first place, third point second, and 1 point for third, I believe, each time over one of the climbs. The first riders also receive cash prizes. Again, I think the total prize pot today is well over £5,000, which is very exciting. But yeah, the overall winner will win the King of the Bergs competition, King of the Mountains competition. And the winner also gets £100, a pennant, and 3 bottles of Quermont beer, as we talked about earlier. So ties are decided by final race finishing circumstances, positions, as well, which is pretty standard the way these run. So it's a very technical course. It's very long. It's got pretty short, brutal climbs. How is that likely to affect the riders, like in terms of when you're going into this? Your first, actually, specifically, let's talk about nutrition. So it's a really long race, really long ride, 180 odd kilometers. How do you fuel for a ride like that?
Most riders would start the day taking in as much carbs and things like chicken, rice, pasta, that sort of thing, cereals, general that sort of stuff in the morning, making sure that there's plenty of time before the race starts. So they probably all had quite an early start so they can get the fuel in, because you do not want to be starting a race with a full stomach, because that's a recipe for a very bad day. Some riders will do it because they won't be doing anything until much later on in the race. But if you're wanting to try and create a breakaway, or if your job is to do the setting, the pacing on the front of the peloton, you'll want to have that fully digested and the fuel into your body before you actually start racing. And then throughout the day, obviously, it's the usual thing of bars and gels and the wonderful new nutrition that we can get in bottles now. You can get carbohydrates, so much carbohydrates on board through a bidon in liquid form. Of course, you've got to train your body to be able to take on that amazing amount of carbohydrates, and some riders can do it better than others. It just depends on how your body is built, really, to take on those sort of things. As we can see, we're looking like we're getting some more live pictures. Some riders look like they are abandoning. I imagine there's a long list of abandons at the end of this. You mentioned the cutoff point. I believe in the road book it said about 8%. And at certain points, if you're 5 minutes down at one point, you'll be pulled out, and then 8 minutes and 10 minutes. And if you get to the circuit 10 minutes down, you'll be considered as a finished rider. You will have finished the race officially, but obviously you won't get a finish time because you don't actually cross the finish line with the peloton. But yeah, interesting to see how long we've been racing for as well.
Yeah, lead car comes through. So obviously we've got a huge number of people out watching today, which must be very exciting. And some of the motocoms as well, Mavic service car. But this is coming on to, again, another one of the off-road sections. And you can see just the dust that's being kicked up by the cars there. Also, a lovely sign of our Rapha Super League banner there. So the Rapha Super League, if you're not familiar, last year it was 16 races. This year it's 8 races. The idea of the Rapha Super League is to combine several races over the British calendar into one large league. And it includes races from Circuit Series. I think the Nocturne's in there as well, the race in London. So it's really a very diverse group of races. And that's the Rapha Super League. It's got same prize pot for the women's races and the men's races. We can bring you more information of the Rapha Super League in a moment. I think it was, let's see who won that last year. I'll find out who won it last year, but there are 8 events this year. The Rutland-Melton CiCLE Classic, obviously, today. Rapha Lincoln Grand Prix is on the 10th of May. The City of London Nocturne in the centre of London is the 13th of June. The Otley Cycle Race is on the 1st of July. Dawlish Grand Prix on the 17th of July, the Beaumont Trophy on the 9th of August, the North Yorkshire Grand Prix on the 16th of August, and then the final race, the Cambridge Criterium, on the 23rd of August. So a whole selection of different races. We've got criterium races and road races. So the winner, obviously, a very diversely qualified rider. So that is the Rapha Super League. The introduction of the CiCLE Classic is new for this year, which means this is the first introduction of off-road sections to the Rapha Super League, which is very exciting. Second year it's run. Last year it was won by Matthew Bostock. Second place, William Trulov. Third place, Tom Armstrong. So we talked about all those 3 riders today. Fourth place, James McKay, the Wheelbase Captec Castelli rider, teammate of Tom Armstrong last year. Oliver Wood for Tekker's CC rounded out the top 5. Matt Bostock no longer riding for Tekker's CC today, as we're expecting to see the riders round this corner very shortly.
Yeah, it's an interesting one for Matt because obviously he's been around a few teams recently, being at Tekker's last year and riding for Rapha CC this year, which I believe is a new outfit coming into this year. Yeah, he's been focusing a lot more on the track. And so it's quite good that he is at this race. Of course, being important, I imagine he wants to defend his Rapha Super League title, especially riding for Rapha CC. But he did rather well on the track in Hong Kong, I believe, just last week.
Yes, bronze in the 2026 Hong Kong World Cup on the track, which is very good. So as Tom Armstrong said, he's got a beautifully strong sprint. We always see him at the front of the National Circuit Series. Riding for RCC Racing, so it's the new Rapha team, and they race in updated 2026 colours. So it's, as you would expect from Rapha, it's a very subtle but beautiful kit. There we go, maybe we should copyright that exact description. But it's a black jersey with just a simple pink band across the chest and then pink bands on the left arm. It looks really smart. You can see now the Motocons coming through. The lead cars were quite a way ahead of the riders, Tim. Is that pretty standard for a race like this?
Yeah, it's standard for races in general. You'll get police cars, police motors coming through as we get the riders about to come through now. Wheelbase leading the way. Interested to see onto the gravel there.
That is one of their tall, lanky riders for Wheelbase, really pushing through the power. See if we can get a number there. But yeah, Wheelbase is smashing it on the front. Wheelbase bring Tom Martin Roberts, Smart, Tom Armstrong, Aaron King, Dexter Leeming Sykes and Mitchell McLaughlin. Any idea who that was? Tim?
Yeah, I was just quick trying to look down the start list because I was trying to desperately see who it was, but I believe tall and lanky, we're going to probably be saying Tom Martin.
I'm thinking
but yeah, he looks like he really wanted to push through this sector and really test all of his competitors on this bit of gravel.
And Tom Martin 7th here last year, so obviously going to be wanting to improve on that. We got some great teams. Tekka CC have a gorgeous new kit. It's sort of a white finish line with some green banding across the front. These just a few of the riders who are distanced now. One of the Sheffield and Atom 6 riders as well. Sheffield Cycling brings 6 riders. So we've got Nathan Smith, Alexander Foster, Joshua Horsfield, James Sawyers, Denholm Edwards and Sam Barber. So that's Cycling Sheffield, and they're in the dark blue kit. And again, this is one of the Azerion Villa Valkenburg riders. And that is Mindart Velunk. So just distance slightly off the back there. One of the UCI riders. So unusual to see one of the riders of such pedigree slightly off the back.
Yeah, he may have had an issue. He didn't look like he was pedaling particularly smoothly. Your start list is clearly different to mine, because mine says it's Enrico Dea in number 40. So maybe they had a last minute change. I think yours is probably more up to date. But yeah, it's interesting to see. But obviously, just because they're in a continental team doesn't mean that you're going to be on a great day. We see more riders coming through here. There's one of the Rapha things, jerseys. You can, we'd actually see who that number was, because it looked like a bit of a stocky rider. Just wondering if that was Matt Bostock. I didn't quite catch his face coming through in the Rapha kit.
We also had one of the Campana in Balega, Gio and Tex Trentino UCI racers there as well. They bring Adam Kelly, Jensen Brown, Leonardo Volpato, Enrico Simoni, Tommy Bassini, and Manuel Tesaro as well. So another one of our UCI teams. The speed of the cars coming around these corners is devastatingly scary. Does that look like one of the MyPad racing riders as well?
Yeah, it's always. If I've been fortunate enough to work for a few pro teams over the years, and been in the team cars, and I've not done an off-road race like this, but in the Alps and stuff like that, and you're going up and down these climbs, it's terrifying the speeds that the cars do. And I've had to drive between feed zones and stuff like that. Yeah, some people are actually sick in the cars. Fortunately, I'm quite used to it, so it wasn't a problem for me. But some people have really struggled to be a passenger in a car at the best of times. Never mind driving at the ridiculous speeds these DSs drive at.
No, probably quite brutal on the car itself as well. We are definitely getting our money's worth from this camera as well. This is marvelous.
It's really good to see, as you've mentioned before, so many people out to watch as well. Of course, with the nature of the route, especially on these sectors, you see the riders multiple times. So it's really nice to see that there are so many people out.
Yeah, and so basically, that's one of the Rapha riders there as well. Oh, just down into the barriers. That is number 76. So just give me one moment. We'll see if we can find out who that was. But yeah, that was just unfortunate as you overclock it around those corners. Sam Chaplin, I believe.
Just about held it.
Yeah, very, very obviously so technical, and you come into these when you're on your own as well. You don't really necessarily know how fast you should be judging that turn. When you've got other people in front of you, you can think, okay, maybe now I'm just going to follow that wheel, and if the person in front of me doesn't go down, I'm not probably going to go down as well. But if you're that leading rider, so there are advantages of being on your own, but disadvantages as well there. So that's just quite a shock there, just straight into the barriers.
Yeah, I imagine that'll be a bit of a bruised hip tomorrow.
Yes, indeed.
No, very comfortable.
I want to see if I can grab a start list. Who do you make number 76 to be on your start list there?
Let me have a look. 76 for mine says Sam Chaplin as well.
It does for me as well, yes. Cool. Okay, so we think that was Sam Chaplin.
That's MyPad Racing. So whether this start list is correct or not, it's always difficult to do with these smaller races. Of course, various sites, First Cycling, Pro Cycling Stats, etc., all try and get the correct start list, but we can only do so much.
No, indeed. I was going to say it did look like one of the Rapha jerseys there in the black and the pink. So we'll see if we can confirm that. But yeah, just goes to show how brutal the race can be, and how important positioning and speed. And I mean, there are just so many factors that play into this. How do you go about training for an event like this? Because I mean, let's say you go out and about and you're around these very roads. A lot of them are private roads, so you can't actually access them anyway. But I suppose you can do gravel training, but just to actually train for that, as we saw there, that right, what would be a right hand turn from smooth roads onto an uphill pavé section, it's just very difficult. It's very, very hard to actually train for a moment like that.
It is. It's really difficult to do if you're not lucky enough to live near places that have things like public bridleways or cycle tracks, which are gravel. It would be really difficult to do. And of course, as you mentioned, some of these sectors, especially the last few, are on private land, and we only had one opportunity, and I think it was for 2 hours yesterday afternoon that the teams could recon the final few sectors of this race. And one of them being brand new, no one knows what it looks like. I saw a really good video on the British Continental's Instagram where they were showing they had an exclusive look at how it looked, and it looks pretty brutal. And for riders to only get one short look at it, because they'll have to look at all the other ones as well, if they only go up and down it a couple of times, it's really very difficult to gauge what's needed for it. But yeah, it's just doing the distance, doing a bit over the distance to make sure you have the legs and the nutrition to be able to do that. And then efforts are always such an important thing nowadays, aren't they? You see pro riders going out there and doing efforts. Just it's very unpleasant. I'm much happier doing just a gentle ride to the cafe and back than doing that. But every now and then I might do a little go up a hill, and that'll be me done for the ride, basically.
Or maybe that's why neither of us are in the Rutland CiCLE Classic. But no, it's a very fair
many
point.
other reasons.
I suppose so. But yeah, you touched on the distance of the race. We're now sort of probably within the last hour of the race, so they'll have been riding since 11 a.m. This is a long time. It's nearly 4 hours on the bike, and when you're riding at pace for 4 hours, you've got to make a lot of like every movement you make is not necessarily a conscious decision, but you are making decisions that whole time. And when you get fatigued, the quality of your decisions obviously declines. And that affects everybody. In Paris-Roubaix, we saw Pogacar's back wheel slip out around one of those corners. And, it's so hard to be on it for 4 hours straight when you are putting in such an amount of effort, that those like little hiccups like that going into the barriers, it kind of expected from at least some of the riders. You're not going to have a race like this where that doesn't happen with anybody. So yeah, really, really brutal. I think what doesn't necessarily get discussed is just the length of these races, because we jumped off on at 1:30, and so we see the second half of this race, but they've been riding already for hours. I think who was it? I had a really great quote. I'll see if I can just. I might not be able to. I think it was from. No, I'm not going to be able to find who it was from, but it was basically the idea that Ollie Kurd, I think. No, it wasn't. Sorry, I'm so sorry. Dylan Hicks. I'm going through a whole load of quotes in my head. But he said that these British races are pretty much flat out from the start, as opposed to some of the maybe the bigger continental races. Like, I mean, you see a stage of the Tour de France, and the start of it is everybody's riding around in it's not going to be easy, but there's a certain element of not flat outness that is not present in a race like this. And so I think that what we don't necessarily see a lot of the time is the fact that the race is full on for 4 hours, and where there's nowhere to hide, especially with these gravel sections, maybe there's possibility to get a bit of a rest in between. But it's really an absolute war of attrition, and it's going to be brutally hard from the beginning all the way through to the end. You say this reminds you of some of the Belgian classics or the races in France. Are they very similar in that it's going to be sort of full on from the go?
Yeah, I think you see it all the time when we get to watch the World Tour races on TV from basically immediately the start, and it's flat out from the off. Riders trying to create breakaways and stuff like that. It seems to be a little different here. Of course, everything's together, and it's more of a war of attrition, and it's more the back doors open rather than the front at the moment. No one's really making a big effort to try and split and to get away into a breakaway. It's all the bigger teams trying to control things on the gravel and on the technical roads, and just trying to whittle it down to where it's just the leaders for the final circuit. But yeah, it is slightly different to things like Paris-Roubaix, Roubaix, Leon, Dwastor, Flanders, Ronde van Vlaanderen, etc. In that they do seem to ride it differently. We often see this in British races. They are often ridden very differently to what we see on the mainland in Europe, uh, which is rather interesting. As you saw, we heard earlier from Tom Armstrong, it's so difficult to control a British race. It's like the only times we've seen it in relatively recent years was St. Piran, because their entire team could win the race, and they often did lock out the top fives in races. So not having a team like that, of course, Valkenburg controlling things as much as they can today as they did last year. But they do have problems like Tom Martin, we just saw there coming through on the gravel, trying to cause some disruption for the Dutch team. It's a much harder race to control than, say, like something like Roubaix-Leon, which has World Tour teams in, and they can just control things from the off. When it's more development continental teams, they don't have the experience of doing that as much as, say, some of the other teams in this race might. And it's a difficult one for them to try and control. It's all the decisions they've got to make throughout the day, and it's a bit longer than most of the races that some of these guys will be doing. Like, as we mentioned earlier, the maximum length or minimum length of a 2.1 race, thankfully for our YouTube comments, is 180 kilometers long. And so this is over that. And yeah, it's a different sort of style of racing for that. And it's very interesting to see how it's panning out. Hopefully we do get to see decisive moves rather soon on some of the upcoming sectors.
No, absolutely. And talking about the upcoming sectors, the final two sectors of the day are the Sommerberg in reverse and then the Stapelberg, both 5-star sections. So and it's the second pass of the Sommerberg as well. So they'll have been over it once, and the second time it's in reverse. It's 136 kilometers in. It's a 2100 meter passage, sorry, 2100, not 2200, in the opposite direction. It highlights it as a narrow and rough road surface that serves as a late race hurdle. It's assigned 5-star again from its combined effect of rough terrain and cumulative fatigue as well, which is obviously going to be the case later on in the race. And the Stapelberg afterwards, 147 kilometers. Actually, I believe there is one more after that. Sorry, yes. So there was the Stapelberg, and then there's the Canalberg afterwards. So the Stapelberg at 147 kilometers, maximum severity section located again on private property in Stapleford Park. So you can't go out and practice this. And then the final section is the Canalberg at 157 kilometers. Again, that's a new section this year. Requires extreme caution for old cattle grids and posts located in the center of the road. That's very exciting. I say it's exciting for us. I don't know if the riders are going to view that as exciting.
Yeah, yeah. The riders will probably see it as, oh, grief, we've got to go over that. But yeah, for us, it's very exciting to see. Hopefully, we do get to see a good amount of it. Of course, we've only got the 2 cameras out there today. We're giving you as much as we possibly can. And we just wanted to show this race because, of course, it's so amazing. It's its 20th year of the men's race, and it's its 18th year as an international race as well, which is worth saying. It's a very big year for this race. But yeah, so we're very happy to be able to be showing as much as we possibly can. Oh, and I thought, who do you think's going to win? That's always fun to do.
Who do I think is going to win? Well, actually, I think who better to discuss this with than a legitimate, actual professional cyclist. So very delighted that we have on the line, I believe, Alice McWilliam, who joined us last week. So Alice, hello. Thank you very much for joining us. Alice rides for Das Hutchinson. Alice, how have you enjoyed the race so far? How do you feel it's going to go?
Yeah, it's been great fun to kind of watch the live stream and see the live tracker as well and see how they kind of are progressing throughout the course. But yeah, I mean, it's a typical race where it's kind of a more race out the back than a race off the front. And I know there's been one or two moves to kind of try and make the race a little bit kind of, yeah, more intent, as it were. But yeah, it's been great. Great to see the videos as well and all the live cameras.
Fair enough. And again, the race came through earlier just a moment ago. But Alice, have you ridden the CiCLE Classic yourself?
Yes, I've ridden it 4 times. So the first time I came 4th, next time I came 3rd. The 2025 I came 2nd, and then I also raced it this year, which did not culminate in the win, but that was my teammate Naomi who got the win, so that was fantastic.
That's pretty. I mean, that's quite a record of achievement in this race. How do you find? We were talking about training and how you can sort of prepare for a race like this. But how do you find, again, as we see this? We think it's Tom Martin leading for Wheelbase Captech Castelli through this most recent section, still with a couple of Wheelbase Captech Castelli riders up there. In fact, it looks like they've got 4 riders at the head of the race, 4 and race team up there as well. But yeah, Alice, how would you go about training for a section like this? How do you find, obviously we're talking about the experience that we imagine you might have racing and going at race speeds on these kind of roads, but what is that like when you're really there?
I think it's difficult to train for sectors like this. I mean, naturally you'd typically be on a gravel bike when you ride sectors like this, and it's a bit like cobbles in Belgium and also kind of the Lincoln Grand Prix as well. It's difficult to emulate what the race sensations feels like in a race like this on gravel unless you are physically going at race pace. The race is so high every time you go through a sector that. And because you're in a peloton, obviously, naturally, you do have faster speeds. If you were a solo rider, just going out on a training ride and practicing the sectors with the adrenaline and the experience and all the crowds and everything. So it is very difficult to practice these sectors. But I wouldn't say that there's anything specifically that you need to kind of train for. It's more just about kind of how you handle your bike and the fact that if you're able to handle the bike in those scenarios and kind of the technical aspects. So it's kind of cornering, make sure you can are confident with your cornering and on slightly looser kind of pave and gravel, but then it also comes down to the technical equipment as well, and kind of making sure that you are fully confident in your setup, which I know that you've been discussing a little bit earlier on as well.
So these are fantastic insights. Thank you so much. Because me and Tim, we can only really speculate as to what it's like at race pace. But yeah, so it's really great to have that sort of professional insight. What on that note, then, what kind of talk about the equipment that you're running on your bike? Bottle cages, do you have to tighten up? Stuff that you might not even think about.
Yeah, bottle cages are really important. As I found out in Belgium, it was kind of opening weekend of Belgium this year, and my bottle cages were horrendous. I think I lost about 5 bottles in the space of about 20 minutes. So my race was pretty much, my head kind of fell off a little bit. And, by that point, you're just shoving as many water bottles and mixes into the back of your jersey. So yeah, bottle cages, probably one of the most understated bit of equipment that you have to have. and it has to be a good bottle cage, because fueling is so critical in races like this, particularly because the nature of the parkour, you've got climbs, you've got sectors, it's so chaotic. You probably won't necessarily be able to get all the feeds that you want. So and also with the cars and the convoy being so far back, with kind of splits in the group and the peloton, it becomes very difficult if you do miss that one feed that you really need your kind of fuel from, to kind of make amends. It's you start kind of being in depletion mode, and it's not a good start or a good part of the race.
Yeah, Tim and I, we talked about the importance of race nutrition as well. And we talked in the previous race that we did last week about how much water and just fluid and carbohydrate mix you need to be getting on board. And it's a staggeringly large amount. So the question I was thinking when we were talking to Tim, and I was thinking, if Alice was here, I could ask her this. And the question was, is it something that when you're part of a professional team, is there somebody or a person that's in charge of making sure that the riders have all that nutrition? Obviously, I'm guessing you have nutrition sponsors that will give you the specific things. How does the nutrition, I suppose, work as a unit when you're in that professional environment?
Yes, well, most teams will have a nutrition sponsor of some sort, and typically before the race, you have your gels all laid out on a table, and you kind of pick the gels, or even choose as well, because this race is quite a long race, much like lots of the men's races and kind of the longer women's races. You don't necessarily always want to be just sipping on mix or gels. So one or two riders probably might want something a little bit more substantial, whether that can be kind of more bar orientated or just chews or something like that. But before the race, you would have your nutrition laid out, and you'd kind of pick and choose what you'd want. Individually, you would probably make the calculation, unless a team specifically has a nutritionist that has explicitly said this is what you require during this race. But generally it's just individuals kind of with a calculator on the phone, just saying, you ask your teammates, roughly how long do you think this race is going to take? And then you calculate it based off what you want to consume per hour. And then you will pick and choose the gels, the chews, the bars that you require for that race. And then also you have to plan alongside the soigneurs to know exactly where the feeds are, kind of what are in the bottles as well, because some soigneurs might put 45 grams of mix, others might put 66, and that's quite a significant difference in terms of kind of if you're kind of looking to perform and be there for the race win, and not deplete your energy stores. So there's a little bit of coordination as well, and just making sure that you know what the soigneurs are doing and what kind of you can expect in the feed as well. And typically as an individual, you'd probably want to take just 1 or 2 extra gels just in case, because sometimes in a race like this, bottles fall out of the bottle cages, and then also you have gels might suddenly fall out. You're in a difficult scenario, the race is full gas and you're trying to get the gel out of the back pocket, and then another one slips out. So yes, it's you don't want 1,000 gels in your back pocket, but you also want to make sure that you've got enough. And also the soigneurs in the feed zones in a race like this, they might have gels attached to the bottles as well. So if it's a water bottle that is in the feed, then they might attach a bit of fuel onto the bottle.
Yeah, we see that a lot in sort of the races that are more publicly televised, is that you sometimes have things wrapped together. We talked about the skill that it takes to actually feed riders, to hand a bottle up to a rider, and also for the rider to take a bottle, especially if you're going at speed through a feed zone. Really fascinating insight. Question, to bring it back to what Tim said, actually 2 questions, sorry, a little bit disorganized. The races you did it come down to bunch sprints, and do you suspect this will come down to a bunch sprint?
It's So on the first question, the races that I've raced here at CiCLE, this year, Noemi, my teammate, she went off solo with another rider as well, and then she attacked that rider. So that was one solo. But then majority of times, the last couple of times have been kind of a small reduced bunch sprint. I remember in 2024, we brought the kind of a good team over from Hess cycling team, and we wanted to absolutely blitz the race and tear it to shreds. And so there was only, I believe, 10 or so riders into the finish, and I think we had about 3 or 4 riders within that group. So it's very much, this race is very much at the mercy of the teams, but also whether they have the capacity and the ability to do so, because as we know, as we've seen, the sectors, it's very lined out, and one sector you might have 3 of your riders within your team that's kind of towards the front of the race. But again, if there's a point in the race where you want to make it hard, and if you only have one rider there at the front of the race, it's very difficult to make it hard and to make the race. So yeah, it varies. But I think, we've seen that it's been very demanding, and it looks tough coming through the sectors from the live coverage that we've seen. But I expect it probably will come down to a reduced bunch sprint, just because there's quite a long period of time from the last sector coming into the finish, and they're quite relatively big roads, open roads. There's not much elevation as well, but that's not to say that there won't be lots of attacks. I no doubt there'll be lots of attacks, and it's just who has got the legs and whether they've fueled right throughout. And it'll certainly be the strongest of the day.
Awesome. And Tim, does that sort of mirror your thoughts as well as to how you see the ending part of this race going?
Yeah, well, definitely. I mean, Alice obviously podiumed this race a few times in the women's side of it. She knows a lot more about this than I do. I do have some little updates of the race, as current situation on the latest updates that I've seen. There was 2 riders away after the last sector. It was Otto van Zanden from Valkenburg and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen from Atom 6. And just a few seconds behind them was Tom Armstrong, and they had over a minute on the peloton. So quite an interesting situation with 3 very strong riders, possibly, from what we've seen so far, the 3 strongest teams as well. So that could be quite an interesting situation. And I thought I saw Matt Bostock off the back going on to the Mannerberg. He had a puncture shortly before then, so he may well have been off the back, and that is going to make it very difficult for him to get back towards the front.
Yeah, that makes it a very tricky task for him. And we saw on that last sort of live section that we had. Again, the way this race is working is because of the nature of the course and the brutality of some of the roads and the narrowness of them. We've got several cameras positioned, static cameras, and so we've got people running around making sure that they can pop them in different places throughout the route so we can get as much live footage to you as possible. And the last live footage that we saw, Tim, you said you thought you saw Matt Bostock, the big frame of Matt Bostock, just off the back. So yeah, it had a puncture. Obviously, that's going to be kind of par for the course in a race like this. It's not necessarily something that you want to happen, but everybody's going to be aware that it could happen. And yeah, just a shame that it's happened to him there. But in terms of his potential to get back into contention now, then we've got this group of 3 off the front. Tim, any ideas? What do you suspect there that Matt Bostock can do?
Well, it's a tricky one, really. I'm not too sure how many teammates he'll have around him, but from the little clip I saw on social media, he seemed rather frustrated to try and get a wheel as quickly as possible. Of course, I imagine team cars is almost impossible to get near. I'm sure Alice will confirm that. But I imagine there's Swannies or volunteers, family members, friends on the side holding wheels and things like that as well, I imagine. If you can confirm that, Alice.
Yes, there's definitely kind of people situated across sectors or after sectors, or in Alston as well, with wheels, but not everyone has that support, that level of support. And also the cars will be so far back, just because of the splits in the peloton and just the nature of the narrow roads and sectors as well. So yeah, it's always disappointing when you have a rider who's, you know, potentially one of the favourites and just might not have that level of support. But you never know. There are really good Samaritans as well, and sometimes other teams will just pass on a wheel to another rider from another team.
And yeah, we see sometimes
that in the past.
Oh, sorry, Tim.
I
Sorry.
was going to say we saw that. I was wondering what the rules on that are, because we've seen that in the past in some of the World Tour races, and the UCI kicked riders off. I think it was like Richie Port giving help to a former teammate once, and they both got disqualified or heavily fined. I'm wondering what the rules are on that. Obviously, UCI levels and national level, I imagine, is rather different.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And for one, I've not actually read the rules on, so I'm not specifically sure on the exact rules. But I think in a race like this, obviously it is a UCI level. It's a 1.2 race. But perhaps given that there are so many kind of club and national teams, I think perhaps the commissaires aren't looking as closely as a World Tour race.
If I may, Tim, I wonder if you could just take us through the structure of, because we've talked a little bit about UCI, the different sort of classifications of the teams. If you could take us through the structure of classification of teams from sort of UCI Continental down to sort of maybe your local or regional teams, how does that work in the UK?
In the UK, it's a tricky one. Obviously, you've got the World Tour teams at the top, and we do have a British World Tour team in Ineos Grenadiers. Then there's the Pro Continental level, there's a UCI Pro team, which Britain doesn't have anymore. Likewise, in the men's size as well, obviously. And then same with Continental. And then it goes into the sort of the national levels, and then it goes like club teams and national teams and stuff like that. And it goes down the various British cycling categories all the way down to Cat 4. I only have experience of racing in Cat 4. It didn't go well, and that's where it left.
Fair enough. I should say I did race cobbles in Belgium many years ago. It was just a Comesse that had some cobbles, and that's probably the closest experience I had to a race like this. But again, I was also very far off the back, which was very sad. But we did see in that clip of the riders just coming through just a moment ago. I think Tom Martin was the first wheelbase Captec Castelli rider, just pulling everybody through with Azeri and Villa Valkenburg on his wheel, but also the second wheelbase Captec Castelli rider there coming through was Tom Armstrong. So obviously still keeping up at the front of the race, and has jumped off into that breakaway. So I wonder if we could also, I think we've got a couple more interviews from pre-race. So if we could bring up any of those, I think now before we get into the sort of the finishing, closing stage of this race, that might be a good time to look at those. But Tim, do you have your money on anyone in particular then, considering that group of three off the front?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm really glad that I mentioned Otto van Zanden now, because he's proving to be actually quite a good one. I think if Tom Martin has made that bridge, I'm not sure on the sprint of the other two, but obviously we know how powerful Tom is. I think he'd be a really good call, and he's clearly on a great day. So I'll just stick my neck out and go for Tom on to get the win.
Fair enough. Alice, any advance on Tom?
I think it's difficult to look past Azeri and Villa Valkenburg. They've got pedigree in this race, and I think Luke Verberg is, given his technical style and prowess in the cyclocross, and I believe he's got quite a good, strong sprint. So perhaps him, or also his teammate who came second last year, Matisse. But yeah, obviously that's outside of the UK. So naturally, I want a UK British winner. So I would love, as we've seen him come through the sectors on the front, Tom Martin, just to kind of keep his cool and attack long and go solo, because he's definitely got the potential to do that. But he might also be playing the teammate's role for Tom Armstrong as well. So who knows? But yeah, those are not one pick, a couple of picks.
That's very sensible. Play your cards right. Okay, I think we're going to go through the magic of media technology. We're going to go to an interview with Mr. Ed Morgan of My Pad Racing. So this is Ed Morgan.
Ed, you're racing in France right now.
Yeah.
Come back for the CiCLE Classic.
Yeah.
Tell us why. What's important about this race that you want to come back for it?
I mean, it's one of 2 races in the UK that kind of mean something to the amateur scene, I think. This and Lincoln. And then Ewan said there's a space, and I was like, yeah, why not? I'll have a go. So yeah, that's it.
What does a go mean for you in this race?
I think it's the same for everyone, right? It's the one race where you can't really decide what happens. Last year I was 4th, and I wouldn't mind doing better, but I mean, I can crash, I can puncture, I can get dropped. There's plenty that can happen that like means I don't do better, but you know, I'll try. So yeah.
And how are the legs feeling?
Yeah, I don't want to jinx it now. So, but yeah, they feel good. They feel all right. Yeah, so you can ask me in like 5 hours' time. Maybe I'll tell you then. Yeah,
We will be asking you in 5 hours' time. Hopefully, you won't be squatting like this.
Yeah, well, might be, but I'll be cramping if I am. So yeah, there you go.
And talk us through this race in particular. You know, the course today. We've got a new section at the end as well.
Yeah.
Have you had a look at it? Have you had a chance to see what you think? What's going to happen?
Yeah, so I went and looked at it yesterday. It's pretty weird. It's like not like any other sector we have in CiCLE. It's yeah, it's rocky. It's but I don't think that. I think the race will already be basically decided by then. You know, you're not going to be a group of 100 guys going into that. It'll be, you know, I say max at the front 25, 30 guys, and they might just only lose about 10 guys there. So I don't think that's necessarily the key part of the race, but it's definitely going to play a crucial role in the ending of it, because it still was over 25k to go, I think, when you exit the sector. So it's still plenty of racing left. So yeah.
Okay. And how if you want to win today? Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
How do you want to do it?
Solo. I want to be by myself. I mean, I have to. I don't think I can beat somebody in a sprint unless they're worse than me at sprinting, which is probably about 1% of the field might be worse than me in a sprint. So yeah, I need to go by myself if I stand a chance of winning. Yeah.
Fingers crossed we see you soloing at the end. I'm going to let you go because my legs are aching already and you've got a race to go.
I might need to stand up.
Thanks so much, man.
Cheers, thanks. Holy fuck.
So that was Ed Morgan. He wears number 78 for My Pad Racing. Very self-deprecating, his sprint prowess, perhaps, Tim. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, he's won a fair few races in the past, but yeah, I think he's won them solo. I might be wrong in saying it was the Welsh crit champion. Someone will correct me, I'm sure. But yeah, I'm not too sure on his sprint, but he doesn't seem too confident. He definitely wants to be solo by the sounds.
So yeah, My Pad Racing bring Lucas Jowett, Ben Askey, Zachary Walker, Sam Chaplin, William Roberts, and Alex Belden. I think Ed Morgan was a substitute in for Alex Belden. So Alex Belden was on the list originally, but Ed Morgan there, who we saw, subbed in last minute, which sometimes can happen. Maybe a rider's taken unwell, etc. But yeah, so 35 teams, 25 British teams, 10 international teams, and 3 UCI continental teams that we talked about earlier. Yeah, and at the moment, just to recap, we've got 3 riders off the front. Tim, you saw that happen on a recap video. So Tim, who are those 3 riders off the front just at the moment?
Yeah, so it's bear with me. If that'd like to work, it won't. Oh well, never mind. Yeah, it's Otto van Zanden for Valkenburg, who's out front. Interesting that they've decided to send someone on the attack, and then the Danish rider for Atom 6, which is Magnus Lawrence Nielsen, and then Tom Martin was just a bit behind them and might have got back on. And then they had around a minute on the peloton coming out of that sector. So interesting trio, and all of the riders that we've mentioned who would potentially be going for the win have teammates in that front group. So it's up to the other teams to bring it back, and then they might just be bringing it back for another member of those teams to just take the win in the end anyway. So it's a difficult one tactically to sort of judge in this sort of situation.
Yeah, so Magnus Lawrence Nielsen, 22 years old and under 23 rider, previously with Colo Quick. I think that's correct. He's a stage winner of the Tour de Bretagne. Is that correct, Tim?
Yeah, and Tour de Bretagne is actually going on at the moment as well. So it's nice to see that he's come to this race. It's just looking at his, he's had some pretty good results over the years, and he seems to be pretty consistent. He's not had the strongest start to the season over the time limit in his previous race of the Tour de Jura, but it looks like he could be definitely a strong rider for today. These sorts of races seem to suit him more than the hilly stages that he's done in the past.
Yeah, we were hearing from British Continental as well, one of the other outlets covering today, that Armstrong made it across to the leaders. So I'm not sure if that means that the two of them went clear first and then Thomas Armstrong's reached back over. Like you said, he was off the back, so maybe he's just got back on. But Thomas Armstrong, again, we heard him in an interview earlier, third overall in the 2025 Rapha Super League. We see him all the time in the National Circuit Series, particularly. Is 2025 National Crit Champion as well. And then Otto van Zanden. I don't have that much information here, apart from that he won the 2025 King of the Mountains competition here last year and was 6th overall. But that's the only information I have about Otto van Zanden, but riding for Azerion, Villa, Valkenburg. So two of the UCI Continental teams represented in that front group of 3 riders. And then also Tom Armstrong, the great British rider for wheelbase Cabtech Castelli in the lime green. Probably the safest bike kit in the peloton, which is exciting. Alice, if I can go to you just for a moment. We're now entering like the final stages of this race. We talked earlier a little bit about fatigue, but how does fatigue at this point in the race affect your, not only your physical capabilities, but then perhaps your mental capabilities of being able to spot something and being like, okay, that's a problem and I need to deal with that now, as opposed to, oh, maybe I'll just let them go. Do you find that you can get a bit lax in your mental clarity later on in a race? Or for you, maybe it sharpens up and you get like a surge of, okay, I'm in a good position now and I have this sudden surge of energy. How does that sort of relate to your experiences?
I think with fatigue, it's, one, it could be physical fatigue, and that could be purely based on whether you've taken enough fuel, as we've spoken about before, hydrated well. Have you put yourself in the best position possible into every sector, into every climb? Have you wasted any unnecessary energy kind of getting to those places, and also following moves that you knew perhaps wasn't going to make it, or attacks that you knew that it just wasn't going to go anywhere? So that fatigue part, the physical fatigue part, is will really start to show whether you've played your card right and been careful and cautious and done everything as you should have done with your fueling strategy and hydration strategy. But I think, interestingly, the mental side of it is quite significant as well. In a race like this, you are constantly thinking, I've got to move up, I've got to eat and drink, I've got to kind of, technically you've got to kind of be on edge and, be ready for kind of crashes coming in front of you, or, riders kind of suddenly changing their lines on the gravel sectors. So you're just constantly thinking and constantly thinking about what's coming up next, whether that be in 100 meters time, 20 meters time, or 2 kilometers time into the next sector. And some riders, you'll notice, love that, and they almost kind of get a new energy every time they go through a sector. I'm one of them. I cannot switch off. As soon as I start switching off in a race, if it's 100 kilometers just easy riding, it doesn't bode well for me personally. So it's great that in a race like this, you do have one thing after another to kind of keep that momentum and keep that mental stimulation there. But other riders naturally will fatigue more because they just, it is full gas all the time, particularly also if ever you're on the back foot as well, whether you have a puncture or you're just not got great legs. today, then that does play into your mind as well. And I think the most important thing for riders now at this stage, as they are kind of coming into kind of the later stages of the race, is just taking those a couple of minutes, or 30 seconds, just to think, okay, I'm here, I need to take a deep breath, this is the situation on the road, this is where I'm at, and this is how I should best play it out, in the closing kilometers of the race. Just thinking ahead, but also taking a deep breath, because it's a difficult race.
For sure. Do you find that teams will structure, because I mean, obviously everybody's very individual, so you say that some people thrive in certain conditions whereas other people might not like certain conditions. Do you find that a team structure is made so that you can maybe kind of like, I was going to say like communism, from everyone their abilities and to everybody their needs, or something, but more loosely, would you say that a team is structured around the fact that some people thrive in certain conditions and other people in other conditions, and so maybe the makeup of the team for a specific event is based on riders' personal, I suppose, mental attributes as opposed to their physical cycling attributes?
I think that's a good question. I would say perhaps less so on that side mentally, but more mentally, well, I guess this is slightly physical, but those that are able to constantly fight and constantly be in position. Because what you want in a race like this is, ideally, you want to have a team that you have one or two leaders, and you have 4 also domestiques, and they are super strong in positioning the leaders into the sectors every single time. So what the leader can then do is just sit back, and they have to follow their teammates' wheel and know with confidence that they will be put into position when the time is right. So I think, yes, not so much the that mental side of kind of being kind of really up for it and raring to go and kind of constantly being there, but just more of the fact that they use their attributes, the stronger attributes in terms of positioning, like looking after the riders as well, the leaders, checking in. Ideally you want a domestique or a teammate to be able to, once the race has settled down after a really hard period, to come back and think, okay, right, almost do your thinking for you. Have you eaten? Have you drunk? Okay, we need to move up in 2 kilometers time, so let's start moving through the peloton to do so.
That's awesome. I am very grateful for that sort of as an insight. Just to keep you, sorry, I know that whilst we're talking, we're all kind of looking at screens as well, getting information about what's going on in the race. So understand that they've just been coming through Sector 3, the Sommerberg. So again, the sectors are numbered up to 12, but 12 is at the beginning of the race and 1 is the final sector. So they're sort of in reverse order. So going through Sector 3 now, we'll only have 2 more sectors after that. The Sommerberg in reverse, 2.1 kilometers long. We're passing through the sort of 150 kilometer stage of the race. And so what's going to happen from now is we, as a monument, we're going to get some finish line cameras, and the riders will come through the finish line first time, and that is into the village of Oakham. So riders come into Oakham, cross the start finish line. We'll get some lovely footage there for you. And then they'll go off and do their 12-kilometer circuit before coming back into the village, where we will have the final sprint. We were talking earlier with Tom Armstrong, who said, and Alice, you said as well, that this final sort of 12-kilometer section is fairly fast and wide after the final sections of Paris-Roubaix. So we just done Sector 3. Sector 2 and Sector 1 still to come. Sector 2 is the Stapelberg, which is 2,200 meters, so 2.2 kilometers, sorry. And we got another 5-star section, so it's brutally difficult. It's at 147 kilometers, 5-star maximum severity section, located again on private property. So it's an area that riders will not have been able to train on. After that section, we have the Kannelberg, which is a brand new section for this edition. And it's just 28 kilometers before the end of the race. And then straight after that, we'll go into Oakham High Street for the start-finish line. We'll cross that first time, get some lovely pictures for you, and then it'll be 12 kilometres until we're back for the finish of this race. And it does look like in Sector 3, the group of 3 riders out the front have extended their gap. And it might have been that the 3 that are off the front may have got there because there was another crash further in line, and it is Thomas Armstrong who is in that leading group again with I've dropped them. Sorry, Tim, could you give us an update on where you see this at the moment?
Yeah, so Otto van Zanden and Magnus Lawrence Nilsson leading with Tom Armstrong for definite. I said Tom Martin earlier, apologies for that. There has been a crash, or there's reported to have been a crash in the chase, so that may have stalled the chase a little bit. But there's been attacks on Sector 3 from Harrison Dainty and Tom Martin, with Verberg bridging across to them. And so Valkenburg are really in a very good position to basically control. Verberg doesn't have to do anything in the chase group if he doesn't want to. So Otto van Zanden, really strong rider. If you just need to look at his stats from his career so far. Even last year, he managed 6th in this race, but he's like 6th in the GC at the Tour of Poyang Lake, which is really high altitude stuff. Tour of Hellas, 17th in GC a couple of years ago. That attracts some really good World Tour riders to it. And he was 12th in the inaugural CiCLE Classic earlier this year, which is sort of like a prelude before the La Flèche Wallonne, if I can get my Belgian out. So he's clearly a very strong rider, and with Verberg behind, of course, being so fast as well, as Alice says. And I believe he's actually quite good friends with Mathieu van der Poel as well. So if the friendship means that he's got any of the legs of van der Poel, then he's definitely one to watch out for.
Are we not all friends with Mathieu van der Poel? I'm not. I'm not. But I should take you through some of the title sponsors today, just whilst we've got a little bit of time. The joint title sponsors this year are Sigma Sports and Schwalbe UK. They once again teamed up as the main title sponsors for the 2026 edition. Which makes it officially the Sigma Sports Schwalbe UK Rutland-Melton International CiCLE Classic. I think I've been saying CiCLE Classic for the whole of my involvement in cycling, which is sort of 15 years. Is it CiCLE Classic? Is this a controversial point?
I always say CiCLE Classic, but it's difficult because you've got that lowercase I, so I don't know whether that changes the intonation of it. I don't know.
Maybe we're all right. But yeah, so that's our 2 title sponsors. Interestingly, a friend of mine in Germany said I've been saying Schwalbe-Rang and it's Schwalbe, but I might be pulling my leg again. I don't know. But we have presentation supporters, and Exo and CAMS have joined again for the 2026 men's race. They are also the title sponsors for the Women's CiCLE Classic, which took place earlier in March. We've also got a load of other key race sponsors. So Pierce's Jewelers, Oakham Wines, Manor Farm Feeds, Grain Store Brewery. It's Grain Store Brewery who are providing your entire body weight worth of beer on the hotspot sprint point into Alston, which is a second passage, and they win their own weight in beer, which is exciting. We've got Dickinson's and Morris, the Pork Pie Sprint, Rapha, obviously the Super League sponsors as well, and Quairmount Oaston Hub. All their information is available online. We'll take you through a little bit of what they do later on. But yeah, so if you are just joining us, we have 3 riders off the front, and we are getting towards the last sort of 40 kilometers of the Sigma Sports Schwalbe UK Rutland-Melton International CiCLE Classic. I think we've got a couple more interviews that we can take you to just before we get some footage of the riders coming into the start-finish line for the penultimate time. So in a moment, we'll go to some of those bits of video footage. Another recap is very early on in the race, within the first 10 kilometers, we had a fairly substantial crash. So the race is a little bit delayed because the race did have to be neutralized for some time. So we were expecting the finish to be around 3:30. It's likely to be a little bit later. So that race was neutralized. Is that something that also another point I should, so this is video footage of that neutralization. There is also a live train track on the course, but we haven't actually had to stop at any level crossings today, which has been jolly nice. But Alice, is this something that you see fairly often in races, that they'll be neutralised if something like this happens?
No, definitely not often. I remember, not that I was competing, but our team was competing at Amstel Gold Ladies, and there was a big crash, so they had to neutralise the race. But yeah, it's always disappointing and unfortunate for the race to be neutralised, particularly when it's involved as a result of a big crash. But ultimately, the safety of the riders for the remainder of the race is of the most concern and kind of the most important. So yes, it's necessary. I think it's difficult. I always struggle to understand the railway crossings. There's been multiple races where I've raced across a railway crossing and I've never had an issue. But yeah, I always find it quite strange that it just so happens that there's a train just at that moment, and I don't understand why the train can't just simply slow down or something. But yeah, they obviously have their timetable to meet as well. So just as much as the riders have their timetable to get to the finish line on time.
Yeah, who are we to get in the way of GWR trains or Thameslink, I suppose? Maybe they're not going to stop for
Henry.
Go on, Tim.
You mentioned about the level crossings. They did have to stop at one level crossing earlier today. They got caught out, but that was before any moves went away.
Fair enough. The more you know, the more you know. I don't know which train provider that was, and if we have direct contact with the drivers. I suspect probably not as an organisation. But yeah, so here is the map at the moment. You can see we've got a few trackers on the riders. 37.1 kilometres to the finish then. So we're in the final 40 kilometres of this race. Still 3 riders off the front of this. The 20th, I think, is it the 20th edition or the 18th time it's run, Tim? What did you say?
It's the 20th. It said online it's the 20th running of the race, but the 18th year that it's an international event.
Fab. And we're also streaming on. Indeed. And if you're also watching on YouTube, where we are streaming, if you got any questions that you want to ask us, we've got professional cyclist Alice McWilliams here, and Tim Bonville-Ginn, our resident cycling guru. There's not a single question I've tried to ask you that you haven't known the answer to today. But yeah, let us know. How do you think this race is going to pan out as well? Do you think that Tom Armstrong can take it from the 2 UCI teams off the front in the group of 3? But yeah, so we're going to be coming through shortly into the last 12 kilometers of the race, which is again just a final circuit. This circuit is new for this year, so it hasn't been included before. Tim, it's a slightly wider circuit than we've normally had at the end of this race. How do you think that might affect the later part of the race? Do you think people are going to want to go away before that, or are they going to use that sort of... I suppose it depends on the riders as well.
Yeah, definitely. Of course. I mean, with the situation that we have at the moment, we've got the leading trio, which have over a minute on the next group, which the last seeing of it was another group of 3 trying to get away, and then the peloton. The wider roads will actually help the peloton chase behind, I imagine. It's a wider, straighter roads, easier to navigate. And also, it depends on the wind. I don't think it's a particularly strong wind today. It's about, I think the max gusts, it says on Met Office, was about 17 miles an hour, which isn't ridiculous, especially not for this country. And it's very, very pleasant conditions as well. So the chase, it'd be interesting to see what happens if any teams can get organised. But the last little clips I've seen of the peloton, it was Valkenburg who were just sort of blocking the front. They were just behind one rider, and they were doing, as so many commentators call, polite interference on the front of the chase. So they've got riders up in the front 2 groups. It's perfect for them. Wheelbase will be happy, I imagine, as well. They've got their 2 riders in the 2 groups as well, and Atom 6 as well. So those are the 3 big teams, really. Matt Bostock did get back into the peloton after his issue, but whether he's got anybody around him willing to work, do you want to drag Matt Bostock to the finish, drag everyone back, and then he pips you in a sprint, because we know how fast Matt is. It's a really tricky one for the peloton to work out, and I'm interested to see what Alice would think on the tactics of this race, and if she was in the peloton in this situation as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that you have two continental teams and one of the strongest British teams in the front, at the front of the race. So it's always going to be difficult. The continental teams naturally will have kind of raced many UCI races, and they're at the mercy of the bigger teams, and they will have seen, or even themselves controlled races pretty well. So I think, the tactics of this race, now it's, the continental teams will be blocking it. It's great that, there's two riders trying to jump across as well to kind of strengthen that three up the road. But yeah, unfortunately, if you're in a team and you just simply don't have numbers to chase, just because it's such an attritional day, some riders might have 1, 2, maybe even 3 if you're lucky teammates in the peloton, and it's being able to commit. And I think this is what the race that we were talking about, Florian Newbery last weekend, it's just having that confidence to kind of dictate, right, who are we riding for? We need to get our act together. Right, this person is going to be on the front dragging it back. But naturally, Valkenburg, they will for sure be disrupting the chase and any attacks that do go off now at this point in the stage of the race, because the break is kind of far enough up the road. They'll just be neutralizing it very quickly.
So, Tim, what do we know about the three riders off the front? So we've got Otto van Zanden of Azerion and Villa Valkenburg, Tom Armstrong of Wheelbase Cabtech Castelli, the UK rider, and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen of Atom 6. What do we know about these three?
Well, I think the surprise one is probably Magnus Lawrence Nielsen, just from his form guide so far. He's not had the most consistent season so far, but maybe that's just because he's not been in the right sort of races. When he's been on the sort of flatter races, he's often been top 25, top 20. So he suits these sort of style of races, and so it's probably no surprise that he's really going for it. He did last year finish 9th in the Danish Time Trial Championships, which really shows that he's a very strong rider, because we know how many amazing Danish riders there are. It was the men's under 23s, but even so, there's so many strong riders in Denmark nowadays, up and coming, and in the pro ranks as well. So he's clearly a powerful rider to watch. As mentioned with Otto van Zanden, Azerion Villa Valkenburg, really strong rider, very good climber. He's been up there in the Tour de l'Avenir, Sibiu Tour in Romania. He came in the top 10 of the Tour de Loire-et-Cher youth classification recently. I think he's a really versatile rider that is a very good one for this sort of race. And then, of course, we know Tom Armstrong winning Monument's very own Cambridge Crit last year in fine fashion. And he's had a really good season last year, especially in the circuit season. So it's nice to see him really going for it on the road racing as well. He's looking really good. He's got a good kick on him as well, and he's got a really good head for racing too. So it could be a good day for him.
For sure. It did sound like we had a couple of riders trying to break across to try and either pull everything back together or to bridge across, make a slightly larger group at the front. I'm just hearing from Owen, we're expecting the riders through the village at about 3:40. So that would be in about sort of 5-10 minutes for the first time. If that's true, then we'll be well within the final sort of 20 kilometers at this point. So if we get that through shortly, we'll let you know. So we're going to have some live footage of the coming into the final village, whose name I've forgotten is Oakham. It is Oakham, before I butcher the name. Yes, so we'll be coming into Oakham. We'll get some live footage of that. Then the riders will go out for their final 12-kilometer circuit. Again, it's a brand new circuit for this year. And then the next time they come through the start-finish, that will be the finish of the race. So we currently have 3 riders up the front. Otto van Zanden for Azirio and Villa Valkenburg from the Netherlands, Thomas Armstrong for Wheelbase Cabtech Castelli, and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen from Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru Continental team. So there we've got 2 UCI Continental teams out the front in Azirio Villa Valkenburg and Atom 6. And Wheelbase Cabtech Castelli representing Great Britain for Tom Armstrong. So it'll be exciting to see Tom Armstrong get the win. He's done very well here previously. Again, like you said, he's got a great kick on him for the criterium finishes that we see him. Often we see him with Matt Bostock at the finish. I think Rowan Baker also has had a bike change. So we're getting lots of information from different sources at different times, and it's quite a hectic race as well. But I do just want to take a moment to talk again about the Rapha Super League and the calendar for the rest of the year just before the riders come through Oakham. So the Rapha Super League, if you're not familiar, it is a league that spans a variety of different races in the UK. So the idea was that it brings together a slightly fragmented UK racing scene, domestic racing scene. Last year it had 16 rounds. I believe this year it's down to only 8 rounds. And the introduction of the cycle, or CiCLE, depending on your pronunciation, makes it the first time that we've had sort of gravel sections in it as well. So we've had track stuff. Forgive me if I'm wrong. This might be me being completely out of touch. Is the London-Nocturne track bikes fixed wheel? It's not. Okay, that's really bad. Okay, I thought it was. That's poor knowledge on my part. Okay,
perhaps
so we have
it used to have. Yeah.
Let's say it used to have, but factually that's probably me being wrong. Anyway, so so the events that we have this year for the Rapha Super League are the Rutland-Melton CiCLE Classic today, the Rapha Lincoln Grand Prix on the 10th of May. Interestingly, that is the most points. So there's a different number of points assigned to each race, which count towards the overall. So Rapha Lincoln Grand Prix on the 10th of May, the London Nocturne on the 13th of June, which is a nighttime race in the centre of London, which I thought was on track bikes, but clearly is probably not. So apologies on my behalf. Then we have the Otley Cycle races on the 1st of July, Dawlish Grand Prix on the 17th of July, the Beaumont Trophy on the 9th of August, and the North Yorkshire Grand Prix on the 16th of August. And then the final event of the series is our Cambridge Criterium on the 23rd of August. So we have a whole load of different races. So we've got the Criterium. Interesting, the London Nocturne is another UCI race. But we've got this road races, a road race with cobbles at the Lincoln Grand Prix. They're not quite the same kind of cobbles that you get in Roubaix, but they are cobbles nonetheless. And a couple of crit races. So the Super League really does bring together races from all different aspects of the UK racing scene. So it's quite an exciting thing to have that all pulled together. There is also an equal prize pot for the women's and the men's race. So that's very exciting. That's the Rapha Super League, and it just gives an overall a space where we can see which rider is arguably the most diversely successful rider in the UK domestic scene. How do you see that going, Tim?
Interestingly, I imagine it's very interesting about you mentioning the points scoring system, because it's not the same and it fluctuates quite dramatically. So the Rapha Lincoln Grand Prix has the most points with 36 points for the winner. This one, the Rutland-Melton CiCLE, however you say it, Classic, has 34 points. And then the one with the lowest amount of points is the Dawlish Grand Prix on 24 points. So tactically, especially if you've got a busy season, picking out which races you want to do is quite an interesting situation, that they've not decided to have it as a set amount. But of course, they're all different sort of races as well. But like the London City Nocturne has more points than this race by 1 point. It's 35 points. Whereas the North Yorkshire Grand Prix and the Beaumont Trophy have 25 and 26 points respectively. It's interesting that they've decided the points in that sort of way. The later they come, the lower the points, and all. It's a bit of an odd one, but it'll mean that they get all the riders early on, and then it'll sort of maybe whittle down to the names who are right up there towards the end, going out for them. I'm not sure on why they've chosen it to do that way, but it's an interesting choice.
For sure. And we talked a little bit about Matt Bostock earlier. So he's the current reigning defending individual champion. So he won it last year when he was riding for Tekka CC. This year he rides for RCC Racing. William Truelove, we talked a little bit about earlier, second place last year. Thomas Armstrong, our man in the break for GBR, Great Britain. Again, last year he's ridden for Wheelbase Cabtech Castelli as long as I've known Thomas Armstrong. And he was third place, rounds out the podium last year. So that's your first three. But yeah, it is a nice way to, because it is the only league that we have in the UK that sort of goes across different styles of racing. So we have the National Road Race Series, we have the National Circuit Series, but something that combines the both is quite exciting. And so we get to see a sort of an overall picture of who is, because oftentimes, I mean, Alice, you can probably give me a bit more information on this. Do riders tend to target maybe the criterium scene or the road race scene in the UK?
Depends on the profile of the rider. There's definitely certain riders, both in the men and women's fields, that like to prioritize the criteriums for sure, because they know that that's where they kind of suit best, whether, you know, because they prefer the short, punchier kind of sprint ends type races. But then for sure there's going to be, you know, some of the naturally more gifted climbers might struggle at times in those criteriums, so then they'll target the road races. But I was having a conversation with a friend of mine that the other day about the British Road National Series. There's definitely not many sprint focused or sprint endings, just purely because of the way that the British roads are, the kind of the hilly parkour and the challenging terrain, regardless as to any of the races. It is quite a challenge. So you know, obviously we did have Stockton, I believe, a couple of years ago, that kind of naturally ended in a bit of a sprint, and CiCLE Classic, you could argue, also does lend itself to kind of a small bunch sprint or even a bunch sprint at times. But yeah, other than that, you don't have much. So yeah, there's definitely riders that prefer one or the other, but there's lots of riders that just love to kind of put their hand to both.
Yeah, I suppose we in the UK, although we don't have the massive mountains that we're familiar with in other races on the continent, we do have sort of a lot of short, sharp hills, especially in areas like the South Downs. And so it's very rare that you actually get a really pan flat race that might suit an out and out sprint team. And that's perhaps, I guess, then reflected in the national series. Is that something you tend to find then?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, I mean, there's certainly no flat road race I can think of in the kind of the national series race. So yeah, it's just a case of just suiting what's best for you. And I think it's difficult because, well, not difficult, but a Swiss teammate came over a couple of years ago, and you know, I don't live in big hills, but she just said it's just constantly on. You're constantly on the pedals, and I think that's why it makes it so attritional, these races. You know, regardless as to whether it's just short, stabby, you know, shorter hills, it's still very hard, and it's unforgiving at the best of times.
Maybe that's an advantage that we have with the UK sort of countryside, that people might not necessarily. I mean, if you're maybe a rider that's, you know, you're born on the continent and you see the UK and you think, oh, the UK, there's no big climbs there, but it does foster a kind of a certain attritional type of rider because of the fact that it's, you know, there aren't really any very long and sort of straight flat areas. Alice, I know you said you got to run in a couple of minutes. Before you go though, what do you think is going to happen in the end of the race? Our updates, we haven't had an update for a couple of minutes because we're just getting some cameras at the start finish. So we can't give you the most recent sort of how the race is looking. But what do you think? Any ideas for the finish of the race?
Do we know whether the gap is over a minute?
Oh, that's a really good question. Do we know? Is somebody on the ground know if the gap is over a minute?
I think at last check it was over a minute, and the chase group has now been caught with Richardson, Trek, Das doing the chasing.
Marvelous.
Yeah. Okay.
With that in
In
mind,
that
Alice.
case, in that case, yes, I think the break will stick. I think the British elite teams, I believe that Richardson Trek are pulling. I think it's perhaps a little too late, just because of the caliber of the riders up front, and also the fact that you've got two continental teams and a very strong British elite team that will kind of be neutralising any attacks. So yes, I think it'll be a 3-up sprint, unless one of the continental riders, either Otto or Magnus decide to make a flyer. But I actually really back Thomas Armstrong in the sprint. He's got a very quick sprint, and also he's, a very strong British rider, kind of very good with the attritional parcours. So let's hope he can do the honours and bring it back.
Awesome. Oh, well, you were on the money for the Florey Newbury race, so that's a good track record to keep for today. So Alice McWilliam, thank you ever so much. Hope you have a wonderful afternoon. Enjoy some training in the sun. And so we'll go back to just myself and Tim. And Tim, so with that in mind, do you think now with the gap over a minute, so if you're just joining us, I'll just give you a recap on what's going on. We've got three-rider break off the front in the Rutland-CiCLE Classic today. Otto van Zanden for Azerion Villa Valkenburg, Thomas Armstrong for Wheelbase Cabtat Castelli, and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen for Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru. Both Azerion Villa Valkenburg and Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru are Continental UCI Continental teams. Wheelbase Cabtat Castelli, not a UCI Continental team, but an absolutely fierce force in the UK professional racing scene. Thomas Armstrong, we know, has a brilliant sprint. How do you think that goes now with a minute of a gap on the bunch?
It's a tricky one, and also we have to remember that Tom had to close the gap to the front two as well. When the initial move went, he closed it after the gravel sector that they went clear on. So how many matches he's burnt there, and whether that's stubbed his sprint somewhat. So we're seeing the finish area for the first time. Some riders who I think are quite a bit down, just riding back to the team buses and vans and assorted gazebos. Still lovely weather down there as well. It's clouded over up here, but it's lovely weather down in the south of England. Or is it the Midlands here? Am I going to get in trouble for saying the south of England?
I don't know. I think the south includes anything south of Manchester, so I think they're all right. Or is it the north includes anything north of Winchester? I'm not. One of those two things is true. But you can see the start-finish line here. So we'll be coming through here shortly, and then it will be 12 kilometres before the race ends. 12-kilometre circuit that the riders will take on. There is a cutoff. Just quickly remind us, Tim, what is the situation on the cutoff with coming through the start-finish?
Yeah, so the cutoff is 8% at the finish. So once they're finished, it's an 8% cutoff. But once they go into the final lap, if they're 10 minutes behind going into that final lap, they will be pulled out of the race, but they will be considered as a rider who has finished the race, but they won't be given a finishing time. It's a bit of an odd one, but it's a bit of a tricky one. Obviously, with the circuit being so small and going over the same sort of roads, you don't want riders going one direction and coming back the other direction into each other. It'd be causing all sorts of a mess. So, yeah, it's just something that the logistics they just had to do, but it means that they do still get a finishing time and they do still get a placement, which is important to quite a lot of riders. They get very frustrated when they get pulled out of races being too far down. And one thing I did just casually want to know is if these three do go to the finish together, if I find my stats again, it will continue the almost 100% record of having a British rider in every single podium of this race. There's only been 1 year where it's not happened, and that was in 2011 when the now Ineos Grenadier DS Zach Dempster took the win ahead of Belgium's Erwin de Klerk and Poland's Marcin Białkowski. Of course, Marcin Białkowski, he raced for so long in Britain, same as Zach Dempster. they weren't like to be called British, but they may as well be called British. But that's the only time that we've had no British rider on the podium. And if these three go to the line, then that'll be another time that we will definitely have another British rider on the podium.
I remember watching Martin Bielocki at Perths, the race in the south of England, now called, of course, the Portsdown Classic. I just remember watching him ride away from the bunch and soloing to a victory, which was absolutely incredible. Just to go through the 2025 edition last year, Mathis Avont is the best placed rider from last year who is riding today. He's riding for Azeriel Villa Valkenburg. Obviously, his teammate is in the break, so he's not going to be chasing that back. Dylan Hicks, third place last year, rounded out the podium. Today, he is also riding for BC Southeast Sigma Sports. Going down the list to see who is riding that was riding last year. Fifth place last year, Adam Kelly. He rides this year for Campana Imbalagi Gio and Tex Trentino. Sixth place was Otto van Zanden, so the rider who is in today's breakaway is sixth place last year. Thomas Martin is in today's breakaway. His teammate Thomas Armstrong's in the breakaway. His teammate Tom Martin last year was seventh place. He was also riding for Wheelbase Captec Castelli last year. Just going down, we've got Alex Belden. He's riding today for MyPad Racing PB Ondo Sports. Alex Belden, he was 11th last year for Muck-Off SRCT Stork. They were around, they did quite a lot of stuff, Muck-Off SRCT Stork last year, as we can just see some of our leading motocoms coming through the start-finish line. So this is the lovely village of Oakham. I've never been there myself. I've no idea what it's like, but it looks very pretty. It's a very nice day. Typically, this race, although it's April and it's kind of getting into the slightly warmer part of the year, it's typically really wet. A lot of the time, I think 2023 or 2024, the race was actually called off due to poor weather. So it's normally a brutally difficult course. So the riders in a slightly nicer condition for them today, Tim.
Yeah, it was 2024 when we had the really bad flooding in the area. So there was just sectors of gravel that some of the teams, international teams, had come over and were trying to ride the routes and stuff. And it just wasn't possible. It was like they were riding through rivers, basically. And so unfortunately, they had to cancel. It's only been cancelled 3 times, this race. The other 2 being obviously 2020 and 2021 because of the COVID pandemic.
Then?
So
was it COVID? I remember
indeed,
that time.
Yeah.
It was a strange
It seems
time,
like longer ago.
I feel like when people say, "Oh yeah, 2018," I'm like, "Oh yeah, 2 years ago," and it's actually like, "Oh no,
yes.
almost a decade ago." It's quite
Definitely,
staggering.
yeah.
So
it will be interesting
to
see what the situation is going to be when the riders come through, if there's been any change in the gap, if the trio is still out front or not, and if they've still got around them. And if they've got, I'd say maybe like 45 seconds on the peloton going into this final lap, I think they'll go all the way.
Yeah, I think, what do they normally say? It's sort of 10 kilometers to bring back a minute's worth of breakaway. Obviously, it's going to be different, and it depends what kind of a race it is. But you think 30 seconds or more, they'll stay away?
Yeah, it's always harder to gauge on a one-day classic, especially a race in this sort of style and this difficulty. When it's sort of a Grand Tour sprinter stage, you say if they have a minute with 10k to go, it's going to be pretty close. But with this sort of racing, the peloton's diminished quite significantly. Riders have come back from crashes and all sorts of mechanicals, and they don't necessarily have teammates with them. So the chase behind isn't that great, and the break should be going full force into trying to work together and to get their chance to go for the win. So having 30 seconds, 45 seconds on the peloton with just over 10k to go should be enough if they continue to work hard, because I just don't think that there'll be the numbers behind. Like Valkenburg's the only team that has really solid numbers in the what's left of the chasing peloton. and they're not going to chase because they've got Otto van Zanden up the road. So I think if they have that sort of gap, and Richardson, Trek, Das haven't brought the gap down enough, then I think it will go for the breakaway, which will be a really nice thing to see.
Well, indeed, and also Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe have 6 riders in today's race as well, and they've got a rider out the front. So they also bring Matthew King, George Radcliffe, James McKay, Enrico Day, and Christopher Gulav. And, so that gives us 10 riders from UCI continental teams who are going to be controlling the front of that group. So, for Tom Armstrong, this is a brilliant case scenario, because he's not one person against 2 people from another team. He's one person against 2 individuals from separate teams. Obviously, if he was, I've been in a situation in a Kermesse in Belgium where I was in a little breakaway, and the 2 other riders I was with were from the same team, and they just absolutely ruined me. There's one off the front, and then I tried to chase him back. The other one goes off the front, and that's kind of the way that, they take it in turns to tire you out. But so for Tom Armstrong, he's in arguably quite a strong position here. He's got a good finish. Like we said, we see him a lot of the time in the circuit races. Do we know much about the sprinting of Magnus and Otto?
It doesn't seem to be their forte. Magnus especially seems to be, he's like time trialist, rouleur. Otto, much more the sort of climbing style rider. We saw last year in this race, he gave his all for Matty Savants to go for the sprint to second. So he finished a little bit off the back of the lead group after doing his big turn to lead his leader out. So, yeah, we're unsure of where he'll be sprint-wise. And from the little we know, obviously we know quite a bit about Tom Armstrong, but from the little we know, on paper or on laptop screens, it looks like Tom Armstrong is the quickest. But of course, it's a really hard race. It's a really long race in difficult terrain and difficult road surfaces, gravel, etc. That could change everything, and you could have any one of the 3 winning. It's just really interesting to see what will happen when it comes down to that sprint, if it comes down to that sprint, of course.
We'll have come through, I think, now the final section of gravel. So I don't think we'll have any more gravel sections to go. So arguably the most technically challenging parts of the day are complete. Tom Armstrong obviously rides all the crits in the UK. They're probably they're going to be slightly more technical than the road races, not nearly as technical as a gravel race, I suppose. But I don't think he's going to be a rider that's going to particularly struggle on the technical aspects of this race at all. That being said, though, with these sort of not pan flat, but very smooth roads coming into the finish, this last 12-kilometer circuit, he's going to be quite just well at home on this.
Yeah, he's got to be careful, of course. I imagine the continental riders will probably have a bit more experience of these sort of situations. But, I mean, Tom, brilliant professional. He knows exactly what he's doing in these sort of races. We've seen him win. It's a great example. I keep on mentioning it. The Cambridge crits from last year. He was in the breakaway, and he was working. Rowan Baker was up there as one of the few others. And we all thought that Rowan Baker would be able to win the sprint, because we'd known Rowan in the past being able to do pretty good sprints from a reduced group. But the way that it worked, and the peloton was coming up with so much speed, and Tom Armstrong just waited until just before the peloton caught them, as the rest of the break sort of gave up, and he managed to hold them off. So tactically, he's clearly very good. So it'll be interested to see how he does today, because you've always got to be careful and not doing too much when you're in a group of 3. You've got to be mindful that the other riders might be doing soft turns. They'll be tapping on the pedals a bit less. They'll be just go on the front a bit less than the others, maybe sort of bluffing, trying to put faces on and stuff. I always remember Sean Kelly talking about how he used to pretend to drink from a bottle. It's like he's still got drink left when his rivals clearly don't have any drink left, and he's just drinking from an empty bidon.
Oh, that's marvelous.
Just sort of mind games like that.
Yeah, I don't know. The closest I ever got to mind games is sort of smiling at people on club runs when you're actually sort of really, really, really struggling up a climb. But there, so we see just over 4 hours of racing we have done as the lead cars come through. The lead cars, we're imagining they're probably going to be a fair few, maybe about a minute ahead of the riders But this is the the penultimate time coming through. And these are our front three. We are being led by Otto van Zanden there in the green and the pink. Behind him is Magnus Lawrence Nielsen, and then behind him in the lime green, Thomas Armstrong. So this is our breakaway. Let's start a timer. I'm just going to start a timer right here. We'll see how far ahead we are of the peloton. Let's see, stopwatch started, so probably a few seconds late to start that, but yeah, we will see. If we've got more than a minute, it's almost guaranteed that they will stay away. That seems to be our general consensus. Again, we had Alice McWilliam giving us the sort of professional insight earlier, just a moment ago, and she suggests if it's a minute at this point, then they're going to be staying away. I think that seems to be our general consensus as well. But yes, so Otto van Zanden, Magnus Nielsen, and Thomas Armstrong off the front, and that's already 30 seconds, and I started it late, so this is quite a gap that they've got him.
Yeah, I've also started a stopwatch. I tried to aim for the sort of finish line area to start it, and it's on 46.7 seconds now already, and you can see people walking across the road quite calmly. So the gap seems to definitely still be above a minute. There's no sign of the peloton just yet as we hit a minute mark now. And it's very interesting to see. I think this break has definitely got it now. I just cannot see the chase bringing them back. That's it's the race is the three riders up the road.
We are over a minute now, well over a minute now, and it looks like this break gap has gone out and out. Here we go. And so who is it chasing on the front? It looked like lime green. Is it going to be Wheelbase slowing it down? It is not. So on the front there. So that is a leading group of maybe, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that 8, 9 riders there?
And importantly, having 2 Wheelbase riders and 2 Valkenburg riders and a few Atom 6 in there too.
Yeah, so they're not going to be trying to let that go away. They're not going to let that catch the group. It doesn't look like that's going to pose any threat to the 3 riders out the front, although it looked like they were going pretty hard. But yeah, it looks like that breakaway then with about a gap of, I think that was about a minute 50 I made to the start.
I stopped it on a minute 49. So yeah, I think it's well gone now. That's definitely brilliant tactics from the 3 teams out front.
For sure. So it looks like that is, again, if you've just joined us, Otto van Zanden, Magnus Lawrence Nielsen, and Tom Armstrong are off the front from Aziria Villa-Valkenburg, Atom 6, and Wheelbase Captat Castelli, respectively. I'm glad you said you stopped it at 150, because I actually stopped it at 2 minutes and then guessed how far ahead I was. So we're pretty accurate there. But yeah, 12-kilometer circuit. I'll just read you through the information of the final circuit of the day then. So following a successful diversion last year, the Oakham finale has been formalized after crossing the line in Oakham Marketplace, which we've just done at 173 kilometers of racing. Gosh, it's a long day. We're about 4 hours and I think just 4 hours and just under 10 minutes of racing. The peloton takes on a brand new 12-kilometer finishing circuit, passing Burley on the Hill and Barnsdale before arriving back into Oakham for the finish line. And it's at that point we will be able to see which of the riders, Van Zanden, Lawrence Nielsen or Armstrong, have the legs today to be crowned the winner of the Rutland CiCLE Classic for 2026. And we're thinking Thomas Armstrong at the moment.
Yeah, and that's not just us being patriotic. I think it's just from just what you see online from all of the previous results of these riders, it suggests that Tom Armstrong would be the quickest in this situation. It is important to say that, of course, we didn't see the finish line there. We do have a camera on the finish line. We're just struggling with the signal at the moment, and we are working on it. Fingers crossed we get it in time for the finish to see who crosses the line first. But that's why we saw one just from a few hundred meters away.
And the peloton we saw there, really, really fragmented. But crucially, as you mentioned, that front group of maybe 9-10 riders contains riders from the 3 teams that are represented at the very front of the race.
Yeah, definitely. It was. It looked like it was Rowan Baker on the front, trying to force a split, and it was working after a fashion. But he was dragging away multiple teammates of all three riders who were up the road, including riders who were pretty quick. There was Avance in there was King there was Martin. So all of those three teams are really well placed to get multiple riders in the top 10 as it stands. So it'd be really interesting to see how the peloton continues to ride, because the only way that the riders not of the three teams out front are going to get a decent result is by getting clear or trying to back themselves in a sprint. The podium has gone. That's not coming back unless something absolutely tragic happens out front,
I
a
mean, it's
crash,
entirely
mechanicals,
possible. Yeah,
etc. Yeah,
indeed.
definitely. So we'll see.
Oh, absolutely. Rowan Baker riding for Jack Rue Hansling Racing in the red jumpers jerseys. It's like how I won the yellow jumper. That was Ned Bolting, wasn't it? So Rowan Baker's out there with Oliver Dawson, Harrison Dainty, William Truelove, Connor White, and Alex Franks. I didn't see. I don't think there were any teammates of Rowan in that front group of sort of 9-10 riders. Wasn't sure exactly how many it was. But yeah, this isn't just a race about the top three. Obviously, it's a huge race in the British calendar, and a top 10 is an astonishing result for so many of the riders here today. In terms of the battle, then let's say for fourth place, how might you see that? It's going to be hard to suggest that it might go another way from the UCI teams that are going to be sort of dancing around the front of the race to kind of slow it down until that point where they're like, okay, now we can commit to a fourth place sort of attack without jeopardizing the front three.
I think what Valkenburg will specifically be focusing on is working for Avance again, like they did last time in the chase group behind Ben Granger, who went on to win solo. So it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do. But I think it will be them trying to work in a way that will allow Avance to go for a bunch sprint. Obviously, other teams may try different things, wheelbase, a couple of riders who can maybe go in battling for a sprint as well. It's important to note that it's not just the Rapha Super League points that people are going for here. There's a decent amount of UCI points in the top 10 as well. And that's really important for riders in these UCI teams, or even in the British club teams and British elite teams, sorry. Because the more UCI points you have, it puts you in the shop window to bigger teams. And so it's really important to see. It's like, yeah, sure, you've done really well in the Rapha Super League, but if you've got UCI points up against some UCI continental teams, that's really important to maybe further your career, because UCI points, in the grand scheme of things, not that the Rapha Super League doesn't mean anything, it absolutely does. But the UCI points is really important to get hold of if possible, especially if you're an up-and-coming rider.
Yeah, they're both kind of, I suppose, rankings of different things, essentially, and the different purposes of each. Just to take you through, if you're not familiar with some of the teams out here today, which, to be fair, before the race, I wasn't 100% familiar. There's a lot of names. So Azerion, Villa, Valkenburg are in the green kit with a kind of an orange chest. And so that's Otto van Zanden at the front there. Atom 6 are in, it's kind of like a red jersey with some very dark blue. So at the front, you'll be seeing a green jersey with orange. And that is Azerion Villa Valkenburg. Atom 6 in the red and blue jacket jersey. And then Thomas Armstrong for Wheelbase Captec Castelli is in the lime green. It's you cannot miss that jersey. You can. I think it's the easiest thing to, if you're commentating a race or you're just watching a race, you can see all the Wheelbase Captec Castelli riders. If it's a criterium or anything, you can see them everywhere in the bunch, which is a brilliantly useful thing, I suppose, from our point of view, but also for the riders, because you can see where your teammates are in the bunch. It's really important to be able to identify who is who in the bunch as well. And there are some people like Briggs has his own helmet, Alec Briggs, and so he's easy to identify in the peloton as well. And so if you're like looking for, I need to take my teammate, where is he? It's like, I'll look for that helmet, or I'll look for the bright lime green, which is so clearly obvious. I suppose it is, it removes an element of stealth, but I think in a race like this, that element of stealth isn't necessarily going to be the biggest thing on the riders' minds. But yeah, so lime green, Thomas Armstrong. Green and orange, Otto van Zanderen. And red and blue is Atom 6's Magnus Lawrence Nielsen. And we're just going to check to see, what we've got going on is we've got some cameras working at the finish line. So we're going to try and get a camera on the finish line itself, then a camera coming into the finish line. So hopefully we'll have two views. We'll have the riders coming towards the finish line, and then we'll switch to the finish line camera, and hopefully we'll be able to get that sprint finish there. But we are within the last 12 kilometers. We've had a whole load of sectors today. We've gone through the King of the Bergs, we've gone through the hotspot sprints, we've gone through the King of the Windmill competition as well. So we had 2 sprints competitions, and we have gone through the Grain Store Beer Award. So somebody has won. I'm not sure who it is, but hopefully we'll find out. Somebody has won their body weight in beer. So, maybe if it's one of the teams that are representative of the 3 off the front, then maybe they've got a whole load of beer that they can celebrate. But how will the riders celebrate after a day like this? Presuming, that they are in a position where they will want to celebrate, because there will be some riders who will just, be a bit sad that they perhaps didn't get the result. I mean, 99% of the riders are not going to get the exact result that they wanted. But yeah, for the riders that did, how are they going to be celebrating, do you think, today?
It is a tricky one because it depends entirely on their calendar. So I imagine the Park Hotel guys, the Atom 6 guys, the continental teams, and the Italian team that we have here, which I think is a club team, will be going back to the continent, and they might have races in the next couple of days, and maybe even tomorrow. So muted. If they win, a little glass of champagne or Quermont beer or something like that, and they might have like a little special treat for tea or dinner, as you might say. And otherwise, teams, not really that much. So like at the end of a big tour like the Tour de France, you see riders always having pizza afterwards, or sometimes do it after Paris-Roubaix as well. But less so for these sort of things. If you get a really good result, you might get a little beer or a glass of wine or something after the race. But otherwise, yeah, it's fairly muted because we're still quite early in the season. You don't want to go too crazy on the old alcohol and sweets too much. But yeah, it's tricky one. We are over halfway on the final lap, by the way. We've gone past Rutland-Melton and heading towards Burley rather soon. Be interesting to see what the situation is.
For sure. Again, I've said this a couple of times, but if you are just joining us, as I know people will sort of tune in towards the end of the race, we have 3 riders off the front with a break of about 1 minute and 50 seconds. So it looks like they are going to lead. They've gone into that final 12-kilometer circuit, and it is Otto van Zanderen wearing number 6 for Azerion Villa Valkenburg. And he's joined by Thomas Armstrong of Wheelbase Cabtech Castelli and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen of Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru. Tim, you don't celebrate every ride with a pizza?
Well, I try to, but they're becoming more and more expensive these days.
Yeah.
We try not to do it too often. I'd rather do the celebrate with a bottle of Quermont, which of course is a sponsor of this race.
Very good. Well, let's take you through a couple of the sponsors before we come to our start-finish line. We've got Pierce's Jewellers, located at 29 Sherrard Street. There we go, in the heart of Melton Mowbray. Pierce's Jewellers is a long-standing local independent retailer specialising in fine jewellery, diamonds and luxury watches, acting as an official retailer for premium brands like Oris. They sponsor the prestigious King of the Bergs competition and the Top Team Award. It's obviously not just a single individual rider event. We have team classifications as well. We also talked about the Grain Store Brewery, so housing a converted, it's probably coveted as well, converted railway grain warehouse next to Oakham train station. They brew award-winning ales like 1050, Rutland Panther and Rutland Bitter. They sponsor the Alston Special Beer Award, where the first rider to cross the hotspot sprint point in Alston on the second passage, which we've gone through already, wins their own weight in beer. So somebody has won their own weight in beer. It'd be great to get your heaviest rider to the front just to that specific moment in the race. But we also are sponsored by Rapha Super League, serving as the opening round today. We are of the Rapha Super League. Rapha sponsors the main feed zone on New Bold Road, where they park their distinctive H-van to serve coffee and hand out cowbells to spectators. I remember they were at the Guildford Grand Prix last year, and they gave me free coffee, which was delightful because I'm definitely a coffee kind of person, but they got a lovely little van as well. And then our title sponsors this year, Sigma Sports again and Schwalbe UK, and our presentation sponsors Anexo and CAMS. So there's a whole load of information about the sponsors online. Do check them out. Obviously, a load of these events could not run without the sponsorship that we get from various local companies, and it's brilliant to see local companies being involved and supporting local racing, and hopefully it's something that benefits everybody. But yes, so we are now into the final 12 kilometers. Tim, how does the final 12 kilometers sort of look?
Well, mainly flat, and it goes by Rutland-Water. We've now gone through Burley. I think we've got roughly about 3k to go, if the map is about right. So it'd be very interested to see where we're at with everything at the moment and what the situation is. I do imagine the trio is still out front. To be honest, as I think, according to our trackers, they are now back into Oakham. They're inside the A Road and heading towards the finish line. It's going to be interesting to see what the situation is, how far they are ahead, if they've still managed to keep their advantage, which I very much expect they have.
Absolutely.
And who's going to win in the sprint. Hopefully we can see the sprint at the finish line, and we've not got the issues with the cameras. Fingers crossed on that one.
Yes, we had a couple of issues last time, but hopefully we don't. There we go. Look at that. Talk about the devil in
As
you
if
shall
by
do.
magic.
So this is the start-finish line in Oakham, where we are just a few moments out from the winner being crowned the Rutland-CiCLE Classic 2026 champion. We can see there are title sponsors Sigma Sport and Schwalbe. I remember going into Sigma Sports years ago for they had a sale on, and so I was just with some friends, and one of them left with a disc wheel. They just bought a disc wheel, and it was like £1,000 or something, maybe more. And we were just like, "Oh, I'm gonna go look at some gloves," and they're like, "Oh, okay, I just bought a disc wheel." I was like, "Brilliant, amazing!" So Sigma Sports, do check them out. They're online, sigmasports.com. Schwalbe for all your tyre needs. I'm running Schwalbe marathon, Tour Marathon Pluses, I think, and they are the most bomb-proof tyres I've ever had. Other tyres are, of course, available. But yeah, so we are now getting these live pictures of our finish line. We've got 3 riders off the front again. Otto van Zanden in the green and orange for Azerion Villa Valkenburg. Thomas Armstrong for Wheelbase Captec Castelli in the lime green, and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen for Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru. Those 3 riders, they've been ahead for the last third of the race. So the lead cars are coming around the final corner very shortly. So do stand by. Likely that we're going to get a sighting of the front of the race very shortly. So obviously at the front of the race we have the lead cars, we've got the comms at the front, and the lead motos as well. A big support out today, Tim.
Yeah, it's been the case the entire way around. It's fantastic the amount of crowd that have come out to see the racing today, and we're about to see the finish now.
And that was Thomas Armstrong. It looked like Thomas Armstrong, but it's Otto van Zanden who had his hand in the air. So it looks like Thomas Armstrong or Otto van Zanden take victory there. We'll get a confirmation. Magnus Lawrence Nielsen at the back there. It would be a brilliant victory for Thomas Armstrong. But we will get a confirmation on that. And it looks like we're going to get a camera of the chase for 4th place now. So they were about 1 minute and 50 seconds down earlier on. Oh, but who was that? It looked like Otto van Zanden celebrating, but I honestly thought Thomas Armstrong had it on the line.
Yeah, judging by the facial expression of Tom there and the big roar from Otto van Zanden, I think the Dutchman definitely took that one. Tom just missing out. Clearly, Otto's got a very good kick on it, because that seems like a very close sprint between him and Tom. And of course, we know Tom Armstrong has got such a strong kick on him as well. So a really, really good win for Otto van Zanden after finishing 6th in this race last year when he was working for his teammate.
Yeah, so that's a brilliant win, we think, for Otto van Zanden, and we'll get confirmation there. But Otto van Zanden for Azerion Villa Valkenburg looks to take the victory ahead of Thomas Armstrong for Wheelbase Captec Castelli. And it was Magnus Lawrence Nielsen for Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru in there. And it looks like we're coming up for the chase for 4th place. And that looks like it's going to be one of the Jack Rue riders. Sorry. I think it was Jack Rue Hansling Racing who took that 4th place there.
I think that was Dainty coming through for 4th place.
And so that would be an excellent result for Jack Crew Hansling Racing. They bring Rowan Baker, Oliver Dawson, Harrison Dainty, it looks like, across the line there for 4th place. Oh, what a finish, Tim. That all happened very quickly.
Yeah, rather dramatic finale, that. It's unfortunate because of the nature of what we've been able to do here. We've only got the 2 cameras, and various technical issues has meant that we have to pick a place and show that, and that's all we can manage at the moment. And but we only saw a small bit of it, but a very exciting race, and one that was really difficult to call throughout. It's a really big win for Otto van Zanden of what was Park Hotel Valkenburg, of course, not anymore. But yeah, he looks like he got that by about half a bike by the looks
So
of that.
close on the line. That was brilliant. And then that is going to be Harrison Dainty coming in across the line for 4th place. And it looks like he was followed by one of the riders for Wielerplog Groot Amsterdam, I think, but I may be wrong. We'll get some confirmation on that. It could have also been the BC East Midlands Castle Legrand. They both have very similar teams, sort of white at the top and blue at the bottom. But yeah, those 3 riders, Otto, Thomas and Magnus, out for so much of the later half of that race, and not a single one of them could get away before the end, and it ended in a bunch sprint. That was the way that Alice McWilliam called it earlier. That's what you suggested was going to happen. I stayed on the fence because, it's the easiest option. But yeah, you saw that's how it was going to go. Are you surprised, happy, pleased, excited?
I'm not sure about surprised. Definitely, I think it was a very good race. It's nice to see it wasn't just a procession for the peloton coming to the finish, because it was, for a period, it looked like Valkenburg were just going to control things, and it was just going to go all the way for a sprint for Avance. But that isn't what happened. Of course, they did end up winning anyway, so they'll be very pleased. Tom Armstrong, I imagine, will be very disappointed to begin with, but I hope that he can look back and think, yeah, I did a really good ride there, because that was really, really good sprint at the end, just not quite having the legs. Of course, we don't know what played out before then in the build-up to the sprint, and whether he was forced to lead out potentially. But the Danish TT rider as well, of course, as we expected, didn't have the sprint of Tom Armstrong. Otto van Zanden surprising us a little bit, going against the form guy potentially. But clearly, he's Dutch. He's got a sprint on him.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess we're also not certain what happened in the formation of that group as well. So there may have been a crash in the bunch, which allowed a few riders to get off the front. But I do understand from what I've seen in various posts or heard is that Tom Armstrong actually broke away to that group of 2. So if there was Magnus Lawrence Nielsen and Otto van Zanden, both again from those UCI Continental teams, that would be an incredible thing for Thomas Armstrong to do. Like, what a great move to get across to those 2.
Yeah, the fact that he managed to bridge when he did was really impressive. And to get across to those 2 when they were probably going full chat to try and create the gap, and then to get 4, 3, 2, 1.
Yeah, and so here are our highlights of the race. So it's 187 kilometers. We set off at 11 a.m. this morning, bright and early. The sun was still shining there. 180 riders were on the start list. I think about 154 started, so there are a few non-starters. We had a few substitutions as well, but we started right and early at 11 a.m. And then about 10 kilometers into the race, it was sadly a little crash, and the race had to be neutralized as a few riders got medical attention. Obviously, the most important thing is that we keep it nice and safe. But yeah, so there was a little break in proceedings, which meant the race was running a little bit behind as we restarted. So you can see some of the riders from Azeri and Villa Valkenburg in the green and the orange at the front there as the race got back underway. 12 sections of off-road today. Starts with the Metterberg. All of the sections starred, so we have 1 to 5 stars worth of difficulty. As you can see, this race still being a little bit neutralized there. Cycling Sheffield at the back as well, in the blue and green. We always see Cycling Sheffield at the front of these races. PB Performance Cycling as well. And then this is one of the right-hand turns into, I think, the Mannerberg. As again, we can see on the front, just piling the pressure on Aziria Villa Valkenburg. And then here, I think that's Tom Martin. We believe that's Tom Martin of Wheelbase Captec Castelli. And you'll see just on the left-hand side of the peloton there, that's Thomas Armstrong as well for Wheelbase Captec Castelli. So Tom Martin here again on the front, leading the two riders from Azeri and Villa Valkenburg on one of the Pavé sections. So this was about halfway through the race. It was all still kind of together at the front. And just one of the riders there overshooting the corner just a little bit into the barriers. And so coming into the final lap then, this is with about 12 kilometers to go, we were led by Otto van Zanden for Azeri and Villa Valkenburg. On his wheel, Magnus Lawrence Nielsen from Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe, Auto Stru, and then on his wheel, Thomas Armstrong as the group chased behind. But in this chasing group, there were riders representing Azeri and Villa Valkenburg and Wheelbase Captec Castelli along with Atom 6. All three of those teams had a rider in the breakaway. And ultimately, it would be Otto van Zanden who took the victory ahead of Thomas Armstrong and Magnus Lawrence Nielsen. So Otto van Zanden first place, Thomas Armstrong second place, Magnus Lawrence Nielsen in third place there. It was Harrison Dainty who had come across the line and take fourth place for Jack through Hansling Racing in the red shirt. So, Tim, a really exciting race that we've had today.
It really was, yeah. Yeah, we saw as much as we possibly could of it as well, and it was a really exciting day. Brilliant crowds out, and much better weather than we've had in previous years at this time of year. So really nice to be able to broadcast as much of the race as we possibly could. And yeah, I think it was a really exciting race on really exciting course, and hopefully we can show this again in the future because it's clearly a fantastic event that's run by a great team with really good sponsors on board as well, and the community is very clearly behind it because there were huge crowds out everywhere we saw today, which was really nice to see, and especially in the Finnish town as well. There was crowds there all day. Of course, as you mentioned, probably mainly for the Rapha coffee.
I mean, the Rapha coffee is exceptionally good. Other coffee is, of course, available. We shouldn't necessarily say that you must have Rapha coffee, but they do have good coffee. I think we're going to try and maybe get some interviews on the ground. If we can't, we'll let you know. But we've got a team on the ground who are trying to get interviews right now. But yeah, brilliant to see so much support. I don't get that much support when I come back from a club run, unfortunately. Fareham is not aligned with people as I approach home, but brilliant to see so many people supporting the race. I guess we had the weather for it. If it's less nice, you're going to see less people on the road, but obviously you always get diehard fans. But yeah, brilliant, a wonderful day for it. We just got confirmation from the chip timing as well. 187 kilometers total, and it was Otto van Zanden takes victory, first place, Thomas Armstrong second place, Magnus Lawrence Nielsen third place, and Harrison Dainty in fourth place. So that's your top four. And yeah, so a brilliantly run race by Thomas Armstrong, as we said. But yeah, we cannot deny the brilliance of Otto van Zanden and the rest of his teammates as well, who obviously were, I guess we could say, instrumental to making sure that group of three got away and stayed away.
Yeah, definitely. It was all three of the teams, really. You could see that they had the numbers in the peloton to sort of control, as it were, the peloton's chase. So they could just interfere throughout with Atom 6 and Valkenburg and, of course, Wheelbase Captec Castelli really sort of interfering in the chase because they had the numbers. Any move that went, all three of them would be on it. And it would just means that there's nothing that you can really do, to be honest.
Awesome. I think we're going to go to an interview now, so we'll just join them live. Oh, we may not be going to. Sorry, my apologies. So we're going to try and go to an interview in a moment. So I guess it's all chaos at the finish line. We often get that. At the end of a long race, you try and find the victor and get those interviews, but it's always not. It's perhaps not the first thing on the victor's mind after sort of 4.5 hours of racing through the mud and the pain and the dust. Let's go talk to a camera, but we will try and get you an interview as soon as we possibly can. So what do we know about Azeri and Villa Valkenburg as a team?
Well, it's a Dutch team, generally seen as a development squad. but they've got riders of various ages on there. But really, it's like, as we can see from the lineup that they brought here, they're all in their early 20s, majority of them. And so it's always been a really good team for them. We used to see them in the women's side of the sport as well. Obviously, until this year, they were called Park Hotel Valkenburg. You saw riders such as Demi Vollering and Lorena Wiebes riding for the women's team before they developed on to join SD Works and FDJ Suez, as Demi Vollering has now.
Okay, I
so
think
they've been integral in doing that.
Sorry to interrupt you. I think we're going to go to that interview right now. Thank you, Tim.
We had to neutralize because of the crash. Then we had to stand still, also half an hour. And we had to wait for the train also after 1 hour. And then the race will start. Yeah. Last year I was also here, and then the race exploded already after an hour, and this year was different. All those kilometers, the strongest one, came
You said, last year you were racing it flew apart. This year is a different type of race altogether.
Yeah.
Did you have a plan coming into this one?
Yeah, we had a plan to go full gas in the first sector. Came back, so we didn't know what to do. We were all in the front. It didn't went the way we thought it would go. I rode away, but some guys had to we made it.
Can you talk us through that finish? Three riders coming in together. How were your legs? How did you feel? Did you think you'd take the win?
Road blocking, so please get off the road. On the road.
It was
road will be open.
tough because we went with I think 2 hours to go or something. But then the motor came and he said so then we could take a bit pace back and take it a bit easier out. And we did the turns until the last 2 I think, and the guys didn't want to go anymore, so I was in front and waiting for them to go. And they went 3 meters below and went in their wheel, and the last 10 meters I jumped, and I think it was this close to the finish.
Yeah, and how does it feel?
Yeah,
when you come back, keep coming back to it.
Yeah, I cannot believe it still, because I never won a race, and I was doubting if I would ever win a race. I was motivated, and then make it up like this.
It's great watching you win, man. Congratulations. Thank you so much for having me. Hand you back over to the commentators.
That was fantastic. Do you think that you never won a race there? Sorry, I think we might be having a little technical issue there. But yeah, I believe also Van Zanden said he'd never won a race like that before, so that'd be very, very interesting if that was true. Tim, I don't know, can you hear me?
I can't hear you at the moment, Henry. Bear with me.
There we go. Sorry. Can you hear me now?
There we go. We're back. Yes, we're back.
Fair enough. No worries. I guess that's the perils of doing a live show. But yeah, I think Otto Van Zanden then said he had not won a race like that before. Is that true?
Yeah, I think he's him saying it's his first career victory. He clearly looked rather emotional, which is really really nice to see. Of course, it's quite a big race because some big riders have won this. Of course, just to name one, for example, Luc Lamperti a few years ago, now riding for EF Education Easy Post, winner of a stage at Paris-Nice this year, won this not that long ago. So you've got a really good sort of uplift from this. So maybe this is the start of bigger things for him in the future. So he's clearly very, very happy. And so he should be. It's a really well deserved victory for him.
Well, absolutely, and still an under 23 as well. So still a long future ahead of him. It said he went with about 10 meters to go then. So it came down to just a really, really close sprint between the three people. So you were right, Alice was right.
Yeah, it really came down to the wire by the looks of it, by the sounds of it, from what he was explaining there. But yeah, he just seemed to. I'm not sure. I didn't quite catch because we had some sound issues. I think you could hear it on YouTube and on the Monument Cycling, but we couldn't quite hear all the interview. But it sounded like he was maybe coming off the wheel of Armstrong at the end there. But it was clearly a very well timed move to take the win, and it looked like he got it by about a wheel length in the end as well. So clearly got the best legs on the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, yes, I think we're probably going to leave it there. So I'll just give you a quick recap. It was Otto van Zanden then of Azerion Villa Valkenburg who took victory by about a wheel length from Thomas Armstrong of Wheelbase Cabtech Castelli. And it was Magnus Lawrence Nielsen of Atom 6 CiCLE Deluxe Auto Stru who came in third. So kind of like a sandwich of UCI Continental teams. But a brilliant race that we've had. We've seen some exceptional racing. Any final words from yourself, Tim?
Well, it's just a really good race. I'm really glad that we got some form of coverage because it deserves any form of coverage. And we hope that you've enjoyed what we've managed to deliver to you on a bit of a shoestring. We're hoping in the future that we'll be able to put together a more consistent live picture view. But it was a really good race and I really enjoyed watching it.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's difficult on this particular race because the parcours is just so challenging, and when you plan in advance, we had no idea if the sections were going to be just underwater muddy messes. Fortunately, not the case. But yeah, so that was the Rutland-Melton CiCLE Classic. We have kicked off the Rapha Super League. The next event in the Rapha Super League is on the 10th of May. That's the Rapha Lincoln Grand Prix. That is all from us today. Thank you very, very much for watching. We hope you've enjoyed the live stream. Do follow us on our social media accounts. There'll be lots and lots of media coming up after this. But thank you very much. Hope you all have a wonderful afternoon and happy riding.